we all ready? Oh, then we've got Superintendent Enfield.
No, I take it back. Oh, no.
Is Susan's all set too? Okay, great.
I am here.
All right, it's 2:05, so let's go ahead and call today's regular meeting of the Board of Trustees to order. I would like to start with our roll call with Clerk Rodriguez.
Thank you. Trustee Church?
Here.
Trustee Mayberry?
Here.
Vice President Nicolette?
Present.
Here. President Smith?
Here.
Trustee Westlake?
Here.
Trustee Woodley?
Here.
And waiting on our student representative. We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, we were just in a meeting, a very special person who reminds us why we value him so much. So I'd like to invite Chief General Counsel Rombarda to lead us in the pledge.
Yes. All right, please join me in the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Now we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the consent agenda items. So before we have this conversation, I do want to acknowledge that there are 3 items that we know that we'll be pulling. Those are items 2.09, 2.12, and 2.20. So if staff could prepare to come up for those in a moment. And are there any other consent agenda items? And just as a reminder for what we're pulling, remember, if you just want to make a general statement about something or you want to bring attention to something, we can do that in this general discussion without actually pulling it. So we're trying to only pull items where we really need to have a substantive conversation, ask questions beyond what's in the staff reports here. Sure. So that's 2.09 and 2.12. 2.20. Okay, seeing no other, I'll go ahead and I'll call for public comment for all the balance of the items, JJ? No public comment? Okay. So I am looking for a motion that is 2.02 through 2.08, 2.10 to 2.11, 2.13 to 2.19.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Woodley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Clerk Rodriguez. Is there any discussion on the motion? No? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. All right. Motion carries. So we will go ahead and we will open item 2.09. And I would like to welcome Tammy Zimmerman, our Chief Facilities Management Officer. This is the approval for a change order regarding the demolition and abatement of various buildings at W. Smith Career and Technical Education Academy to integrated demolition and remediation for just under $700,000.
Thank you, President Smith.
Hi.
Tammy Zimmerman, for the record, Chief Facilities Management Officer. So this change order is for abatement at the new W. Smith campus. And when we went in, we did go in and do a survey, right? We did not go in above ceilings because it was an active campus with staff and students in there. And as you know, when you get into old buildings, you just don't know what you find behind those walls. So as they were going through and pulling items off, they found items, we tested them, and they have come back asbestos containing. We want to take care of those so that when we open the new building, that we don't have that kind of material there and have to deal with it in the future. And that's what this is. They're in unforeseen areas. You couldn't have known it unless you started tearing things apart or digging up the foundations of that.
Thank you. All right. I know Trustee Church has some questions, so I want you to have the opportunity to go first.
Thank you. I guess the question is, the reason I wanted this pulled, number one, you ran through that. It just seems we must have had plans in the past. We must have known there was asbestos. And then my next part of that question is, are we going to have more costs coming before us for more asbestos?
This change order will round out this contract, which is the demolition, which is much less than what it was estimated at. Any new building, you'll find surprises, but we are working hard with our plans and specifications and looking at the buildings to make sure that we have mitigated and found all those. And if we find them, we've put a cost or a scope in the documents to take care of that. And then with any project, we do put on owner contingency and contractor contingency to take care of those if that happens within the scope of that work.
There's always going to be unforeseen things in construction. I totally get that, but I think with these older buildings, if the company that's bidding these is going to be remiss and not take that into consideration, the age of the building, I would like to see us moving forward to just build that into the cost. And just, there's going to be asbestos in these older buildings, and I think it would really be wise on our part just to build that in and to expect it. And then if we have to, we can maybe decide on something that is a little bit more cost effective, another material to make up for that cost. And then if in the end we don't find that we needed that, we're ahead. But I can almost guarantee you in these older buildings, there's always going to be asbestos.
All right, are there any, Trustee Church? Yep,
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
forgot my other question that just popped back into my head. Part of that contract says 50% cost by IDR, 50% cost by Washoe County School District. How did that come about?
There are some of the items on there that the IDR had to take care of because it was included in the scope, and we split those with them. They expanded upon, we put line items in the scope for a certain amount of it based off of our information. It expanded just a little bit beyond that, so they'll take care of 50% of it, and we'll take care of 50% of it.
And you think that's a good deal, 50%, 50-50?
They've been a great partner with us out there to do the work.
Okay, thank you.
They've taken care of items that are beyond the scope as a good partner with us, so.
All right. JJ, is there any public comment on this particular item? No. All right, if we've satisfied those questions, I'm looking for a motion to approve item 2.09. Moved by Clerk Rodriguez,
I'll second that.
seconded by Trustee Mayberry. Is there any discussion on the item? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Ms. Zimmerman. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to item 2.12. This is for a new provider. This is approval of the agreement with Addiction Treatment Technologies, also known as Care Solace, to access mental health treatment providers using the Governor's Emergency Education Relief School-Based Mental Health Professional Program funds for just over $150,000. And I believe speaking on behalf of this item is going to be Superintendent Enfield. Wonderful. All right. So I will go ahead and I will start this. This was one of the ones that I had wanted to pull to talk a little bit more about this. I think that this is a very exciting step in the right direction in terms of connecting our school community with help. But I was wondering, Superintendent Enfield, can you tell us a little bit more about how you came to know about Care Solace and what your professional knowledge is of this service and impacts you've seen it have in other districts?
Yes, thank you, President Smith. Good evening or good afternoon, everybody, and happy Valentine's Day. So I have been familiar with Care Solace for, I'd say, maybe the last year and a half, 2 years. Most recently, though, they came to my attention because I was in conversation with Dr. Jara in Clark County, and they were using them. And also Churchill County in our state is using them. So for me, whenever I'm looking at a potential provider or partner for the district, it's important for me, to look into whether I think it really meets a need. And I think we are all in agreement that the mental health needs and support needs within our system and broader community are significant. And any investment we can make to address that, I think, is worthwhile. I also, though, it's also helpful when I know that a provider is already working in our state, because as we all know, states have certain uniquenesses to them. for lack of a better word. And Clark County has had wonderful success with them so far, as has Churchill. So based on that recommendation, I brought them in to meet not just with district staff, but I actually felt that the implications for this go beyond the district, and that some of our community partners would be interested. And so we brought in Renown Health, the Children's Cabinet, and some others to learn about this system and what it can do for the community. And there's tremendous support for this in the broader community, so much so that should this pilot be successful, which we fully anticipate it will be, I believe that there are some of our community partners or community agencies may want to help us with the ongoing costs of this system moving forward.
That's fantastic news. So just to clarify, so everyone understands, this would be a service available for all of our students and their families. That's
staff.
the district and staff that the district would be providing. That's outstanding. One moment, Trustee Church. I know that Trustee Westlake also had questions about this, and so I'd like to invite her next.
Thank you. So I am in full agreement that our district absolutely needs to be addressing this issue. We need to try and avoid any more tragedies in this district. Our children are our most valuable treasures, and we have to be doing everything that we possibly can to protect them and to direct them to get the most beneficial help in the fastest means possible. And so I'm not against us utilizing, and this sounds like a great program. I just, in reading through some of the definitions and explanations, I just had an issue, and it could be cleared up with a simple explanation or reassurances, but I feel that I need to say something because I am representing the parents in my district and sitting on this board, all parents. And it's one paragraph, and if I can read what it says, because I don't want to misquote. When contracting with Care Solace for educational purposes, the district may act as the parent's agent and can consent to the collection of students' PII, and I think that must be personal information, individual information. I'm thinking that's what the PII stands for, on the parent's behalf. Care Solace is further required to provide all parental notification requirements under applicable law, including publicly posting its privacy policy that includes descriptions of what information is collected from students, how that information may be used and disclosed, and contact information for any third parties that may be collecting information through the site. So I have just a teeny concern with the collecting thing, because sometimes the collection of data is not used in the patient's best interest, but more so, I'm concerned that the school district is basically taking over as the advocacy for children, even though they say they're going to inform the parents, but there's a gray area there of how much they're going to, it sounds like how much they're going to inform them, when they're going to inform them. And I just have to say, I am for the parent being the primary advocate. It's awesome that they can have direction and be given these tools and a dialogue and communication opened up so that they're aware that their child has these things that they can be utilized for the child's health benefit. But my concern is it doesn't seem like the parent is the primary advocate here. And I think parental's voice is utmost and supersedes everything. But that's my concern.
Trustee Westlake, where's that paragraph? What page?
It is on
Page 4, paragraph 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I know that Dr. Lamarca is there, and he has been instrumental in leading the contract discussions with Care Solis, so I'll ask him to come up as well.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Lamarca. I appreciate that. I was going to invite you up too. Can you clarify if this is standard practice, what this really means in terms of the district and parental responsibility? If you could clarify that, we would appreciate it.
For the record, Paul Lamarca, Chief Strategies Officer. I can try and do that. Personal identifiable information that's referred to in that clause. The kind of information that they would be collecting is all of what we consider under FERPA as directory information. This is name, age, race, certain preferences that a family may have regarding the support that they would receive. Care Solis has actually been designated under FERPA, under federal legislation, as a representative, a district representative. They have access, but we still will be receiving parental access. They'll go beyond that. In other words, we can share directory information without that, but we won't, and we've talked about that. They collect information simply to best match the student's needs or the staff member's needs with available providers. So if you have some very specific requests in who you want to see, they try and match that up. So that's the reason for it. To my knowledge, it is not used in any other way. It's not shared with anyone else. So there's two basic pathways into the system, and the typical pathway is actually from a parent or from a student or from a family guardian who's accessing this system. And when they access the system, there isn't a consent juncture because they're accessing the system. They're doing that on their own accord. The paragraph you're reading refers to when a student may see a school counselor. And in conversation with the student, there may be a need for some support. The counselor would seek permission from the parent to access Care Solis, and then would be able to access the system and complete some of the inquiry on behalf of the student.
Okay, the word seek, is that they just make an effort to contact the parent and bring the parent in? I myself would feel more comfortable if the parent has to be brought in before it goes any further. Not just, well, we did due diligence, we reached out to the parent, can't get a hold of them, we're going to move forward. I mean, is there anything in there that the parent has to be on board and co-partnering with the decisions made for the parent's child?
We will always seek active parent consent before we seek support through the system for a child. So we will not make calls home. We can't reach parent, and so we don't use the system. I mean, okay. we use the system anyways. We won't. We will not use the system unless we have consent from the parent.
Okay, so consent has to be given by the parent, and they're brought in to partner in this venture to seek health and support for the parent's child.
Yes. Okay. Now, when you say, I want to just clarify, so we can work this out. Bringing in doesn't mean the parent actually has to physically show up at the school site in order to do this. That's actually part of the beauty of the system, is it knocks down barriers. Some of the barriers that families regularly experience is transportation, for example. Okay. So counselor might call home, talk with mom, mom provides consent, and yes, mom would know all the questions that are going to be asked, counselor would talk with mom. And likely what actually happens in that particular case is the counselor accesses the information, but then there's what they call like a care chaperone. It's a member of the Care Solis team. They will interact directly with the family in finalizing appointments. Okay. We don't collect any of the information regarding who a child is seeing, the content of why they're being seen, that's not collected in the system at all.
Okay. No, thank you very much. I just want to see the trust between parents and our district, and knowing that the parents are going to be involved and included and aware of decisions made moving forward for the child.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. LaMarca. Appreciate that clarification. Is there any, Trustee Church, did you have a further question that has not already been touched on?
So under this, just kind of an explanation of what this gear is that essentially ESSER money, instead of going directly to us, gets funneled to the state and then down to us?
Yes.
I believe the answer is yes, but we have someone coming up to state for the record.
Hi, this is Laura Nolan, Director of Grants for the record. So Gear Money is part of the governor's money. So we had ESSER money and we have Gear Money. And this Gear Money in particular, Gear 2, was earmarked for student-based mental health services. Yes.
Thank you so much, Ms. Olin. We appreciate it.
Yeah. That answers my question. My concern was, why aren't we spending this on teachers' aides or something? And that answers that. So, and good catch on Trustee Westlake on that one paragraph.
Yeah, it sounds like we have a good plan in place. We're not connecting students to therapy outside of the awareness of their parents and guardians. Okay, great. All right, so are there no public comment on this, JJ?
Margaret Martini.
Hi, Ms. Martini.
Hello. Margaret Martini in Klein Village. I also, this paragraph screamed out at me when I read the packet of what you were going to agree to today. And so because Trustee Westlake did bring it up and there was a discussion, I would like to be assured that this paragraph is changed before you sign anything or approve it to reflect the discussion that we had here today. Because in the past, the school district has not been very forthcoming or very trustworthy in what actually is discussed and then what comes down to what we're going to approve. So approving this as it's written after we've had the discussion is not acceptable. You're going to have to change to what the discussion was about, because it clearly states here, as Trustee Westlake said, the district may act as the parent's agent. The district should never act as the parent's agent. Never, never, never. That's not your purview here. You are not the parent. You are not the parent's agent unless you have specific written approval from the parent to be their agent. So I don't know how that shakes down legally, but this sentence here, you cannot act for the parent unless you have written approval on that. And then I have in that scope of what they're collecting, the information they're collecting on the kids, the United States is one of the few countries that does not have a federal baseline privacy laws that lays out minimum standards for data use. Instead, it has tailored laws that's supposed to protect the data in different sectors, including health, children's, and students' data. But despite the existence of a law, the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act, that is specifically designed to protect the privacy of student educational records, there are loopholes in the law that still allow data to be exploited. So when you're collecting this data per this, whatever it is, you have to see what kind of data you're collecting, where it's going, and how it's going to be used. I mean, we've had one incident already of having and I forget the name of it, but having a third-party vendor having all this data on the children and then having it being sold to China. Go figure, okay? So you have to
All right,
look
thank
at
you
that.
so much,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Martini. I appreciate it.
John Eppolito.
Hi, Mr. Ippolito.
Hello. My name is John Ippolito, and I too have problems with this, quote, district act as parents agent. You know what? You guys don't have a very good record. We've had at least 3 data breaches that we know of with vendors within the school district. Twice our children's data has been placed for sale on the dark web. You don't tell the parents. Once our children's data was sold to the Chinese. That was the biggest education vendor of all, Edmodo. You don't tell the parents. Now, Paul has just given you some misinformation. He said, quote, "To my knowledge, data is not shared with anyone else," end quote. If you read through that agreement, they do share data with others, and they say it right in the agreement. And this reminds me of the time when Paul also told us a couple years ago that communities and schools did not maintain their own database on the students. And then a year later, when you guys voted again to pay communities and schools, I don't know how much it was, I found out that communities and schools does maintain their own database on the students. And Paul said, well, he was going to find out how long they keep it for. I have never heard. I don't know if you guys have. Part of the problem is these guys back here aren't looking out for the kids. That's your job. They're not doing it. They're looking out for their job, for themselves, not for the kids. There's been too much misinformation. The other thing that Paul said, when the school counselor talks to the kid, does that data get entered into Infinite Campus? The most massive database created in human history. None of this data is ever deleted. How is this going to affect the future of our kids? You guys are not doing your jobs. We're trying to help, but you're not doing what's necessary. And when you say always seek active parent consent, I would say that's a lie, except I can't say it's a lie. I can say this. This district has given a psychological assessment to 4 schools without prior parental consent, the Devereaux Student Strengths Assessment. Paul knows exactly what I'm talking about. One of the problems is you guys come and go. Paul's always here, and he's not honest, and he's not going to do what's best for the kids. He's going to keep his own job. Paul doesn't like me very much. I don't know why. I'm such a nice guy. You know, this is why I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking about this stuff, because these guys aren't looking out for the kids. That's your job. And unfortunately, we don't think you're doing it either. We don't know how this database is going to affect the future of the kids. We don't know how the data that Carasalis collects today will affect the future of the kids. And Carasalis tells you they're going to share that data with others. At minimum, this should be tabled until we find out who those other people are. And you should get Paul back up here to tell the truth if he can. Sorry. John Eppolito, Protect Nevada Children.
Thank you, Mr. Ippolito. I know the superintendent would like to jump in here, but do we have another public comment?
That's all I have.
All right, Superintendent Enfield, and then Trustee Mayberry. I know I missed your light.
Yes, President Smith, thank you. I just need to say that I don't think talking about specific staff members in public comment is appropriate. And I do know, having worked with Dr. Lamarca, that he cares very much about the well-being of our children. And we hear loud and clear the privacy concerns that some in our community have, and we are working diligently to address those. We also have to balance that with finding more opportunities to provide our children and staff with the supports they desperately need. And we will continue to work to find that balance because it is incredibly important.
You can't keep lying to the board.
Stop. Thank you. Order, please. So I do have a question as follow-up with that. I assume, or can this be confirmed, that this agreement has been reviewed legally and is in line with our current practice?
I can confirm that.
Could you mind stating that for the record?
Yeah, I can confirm. I was just communicating with our attorney who handles this matter, General Counsel Sarah Montalvo, and she has confirmed that she's read this. This is consistent with COPA, and it's actually pretty common language in these type of agreements.
All right, thank you. Trustee Mayberry, I know I missed you last time. My apologies.
No worries. Thank you, Madam President. Superintendent Enfield, good to see you. You said it once, just wanted to clarify. You said the word, this is a 8-month trial basis, correct? And so what happens after 8 months?
Yes, so we're piloting this to I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry,
Oh,
there
thought
was
someone said something.
a frozen, but now we have you again. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm back. So you are right, Trustee Mary, it's a pilot. We want to make sure that it does indeed meet the needs of our system. And as I alluded to before, there's tremendous interest in the community for this maybe being expanded beyond the district for others in the community. And so I think once we see how well this works, we revisit this with our community partners to look at long-term sustainable funding and perhaps broadening access to more in the community who need it.
All right, thank you. All right, let's start wrapping this up. I know we've covered a lot of ground, so let's try to only touch on things that we haven't already discussed. Is there something new or a different question, Trustee Westlake?
I just think in the spirit of establishing a trust with our public, I know there's an urgency here. I just think it would be important to really look at that language in that paragraph, because it is negating our parents. And I'd like to make a motion that we table this until we can address the language in that paragraph and absolutely state in that paragraph that the parent is the advocate and can ask Care Solace then to advocate for them with their permission. It's just a matter of language, but
so are you making a motion? This is a really long motion.
I am making a motion that we table it. We just pump the brakes here a little bit until we can clean up that language so that we work on establishing trust in the community.
Okay, so that would need to be a motion. So then
that is a motion.
What you would say is something along, and we will have discussion on this because I do want to clarify a few things. But since we have a motion, let's clean that up. You move to continue the conversation on item 2.12, pending a rewrite of the contract based on your feedback. Is that what you're looking for?
A rewrite of that paragraph so that it is clearly stated that the parent is the primary advocate for their child and then can reach out and utilize. I don't want to have a
So you're going from a motion to narrating. Okay. So we need to keep it more to a motion, and then we'll ask for a second, and then we'll have discussion, and if we get that far, we'll take a vote. So let's stay with what the motion is.
A motion to clean up the language in the one paragraph so that it clearly states that the parent is the primary advocate of their child when utilizing Care Solace and what Care Solace has to offer.
Okay, I'm going to take another stab at this. So I think what you're trying to say is that you're moving to continue on this item pending the rewrite of the third paragraph of the fourth page based on the feedback you've provided.
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. And now we'll open it up for conversation. So I'm going to vote no against this because this language already says that. We don't need to have a paragraph that says parents are the only advocates, because at the end of the day, our mental health professionals in the schools sometimes need to make decisions for students. And this, by the way, is completely common and happens all the time in our school. So I agree with you that parents are absolutely the top advocate for their students, but our professionals in the schools have the ability to also perform in their roles. And like Dr. LaMarca just explained to us, this agreement does not allow the Washoe County School District to put children into therapy without their parent or guardian being aware. This just provides the educational professionals in the schools the ability, with permission or in the in an emergency situation or an urgent situation to act in these matters. This does not negate the primary advocacy or the decision-making responsibilities around parents. This is really, really common language. So I support the essence of what you're getting at, but I'm not going to vote no for this new service for our students, staff, and families because I want an additional paragraph that states that. Although I agree with you in theory, I think that this is well within what it is that we execute within the district. So that's my discussion on the matter. Is there any other discussion on the matter? And then we'll go ahead and take a vote. Yeah,
Thank
yes,
you.
please.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with Trustee Westlake, and I agree with the two speakers with regards to the privacy issues. I think in deference to them that, while yes, this is legal, I think it doesn't hurt to send it back, bring it back one more time, and just add a sentence recognizing in writing the parental consent issue, because I'll just read it into the record and then I'm done. Quote, when contracting with Care Solace for educational purposes, comma, the district may act as the parent's agent and can consent to the collection of students' PII on the parent's behalf, period. I think it wouldn't hurt to add that sentence that I asked for.
Okay. So all those in favor of continuing on the item for future discussion based on that feedback? All those in favor say aye.
Aye?
Oh, discuss it, aye. Sorry, I thought you were going with
That's
the other
okay.
one. Aye.
Okay. All those opposed say nay. Nay. All right. So that is 2 and 5. So that motion does not advance. Great that you brought that up. So thank you for that discussion. These are the types of conversations that we should be having and stones that we should be overturning, and so I welcome that. We have had considerable conversation about this, and so if there is another motion. Oh, welcome, Ivy. Our student representative, Ivy Batmall. Thank you for coming. Is there a motion?
Yes, Diane Nicolette, I would like to make a motion. Motion to approve the agreement with the Addiction Treatment Technologies LLC DBA Care Solace to access mental health treatment providers using the Governor's Emergency Education Relief 2 School-Based Mental Health Professional Program funds for $152,500, and the board directs the superintendent to provide monthly updates to this program.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Woodley. Motion made by Vice President Nicolette. Any discussion on the item? All right, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
2 nays. So 5 for, 2 against. The motion passes 5-2. This was a good discussion. Thank you very much. All right, so moving on to item 2.20. And this is the review of the annual charter school performance and monitoring, updated bylaws for Sierra Nevada Academy Charter School, and to make a finding whether the school is compliant with the terms and conditions of its charter agreement. This is an item for action, and we welcome Stacy Cooper, Coordinator of Extended Studies and Charter School Oversight. I'd like to first welcome Trustee Church. I know this was an item that you wanted to discuss.
Thank you. I guess my first question is, anybody here from Sierra Nevada Academy Charter School to answer questions? Or
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Stacy Cooper. I serve as the charter liaison for our charter schools here in Washoe County School District. I am here in steadfast for the current principal who is out on medical leave by coincidence for foot surgery. So I do have his statement to be read if needed, and I have the information to respond to any questions you may have today.
I think we'd be interested in a statement from the principal, if you may. Thank you, Ms. Cooper.
Good afternoon, members of the Washoe County School District Board of Trustees. This letter is provided to you today for a brief response to the recent annual charter school performance audit conducted for Sierra Nevada Academy Charter School. Due to a recent surgery, I cannot be physically present for this meeting. Mrs. Stacy Cooper, Washoe County School District's Charter Liaison, is assisting in response to the performance audit, specifically in the area of curriculum and instruction. For our topic discussion today, please allow me to share a few points or historical facts about SNACS. SNACS was founded as the first elementary, middle, and high school back in 1999. Since then, they have continuously served elementary and middle school age students in the North Valleys all the way through up until 2020. Beginning in 2020, we acknowledged the receipt of our high school contract and agreed to expand our levels of students being served, incrementally adding one additional grade level per year. SNACS has continuously served approximately 350 to 450 students per year since its inception. In July 2017, SNACS acquired an additional campus site currently located at on Fox Avenue, due to the original site being completely full. This did hamper our ability to serve high school students adequately. Students moved into the new campus in 2018, and then, of course, the COVID pandemic hit. In August 2023, SNACS will be consolidating both of their sites into their one existing functional campus, serving all their student grade levels. SNACS uses the Common Core State Standards, Next Generation Science Standards, and the Nevada Academic Content Standards for social studies for all instruction. They use personalized approach for education, where every student receives a personal learning plan for standards-based instruction, followed by specific goal setting. Currently, SNACS serves approximately 350 students for grades kindergarten through 11th grade. All teaching staff are fully certified and endorsed by the Nevada Department of Education for the respected positions that each possess. For the high school piece, SNACS serves approximately 15 students across 3 grade levels, 9, 10, and 11th grade. Of the 15 currently enrolled high school students, 8 of those were previous SNACS students, and the other 7 come from other local high schools, and 1 from another county in Nevada and even out of state. All high school students currently reside in the vicinity of the school, and all the high school students come full face-to-face daily for their instruction. SNACS currently holds 1 teacher certified and endorsed by the Nevada Department of Education to provide full brick-and-mortar instruction in the ELA core academic area. All high school students, if not already completed this course, they earn credit for this English half class. All remaining courses are supplemented and completed using the academic content standards and their online vendor, Brigham Young University, which is an accredited online university for the remaining core academic courses that they require. The recommendations from the audit for our high school students included having the English language arts teacher provide more than 1 quarter's worth of curriculum. The annual audit was required to be completed in November, and the first quarter was submitted. And to date, this teacher has in fact completed the year-long curriculum map since the delivery of this audit. They are happily moving towards a year-long curriculum map at the annual audit site in November this next year. Additional recommendations included consulting with the Nevada Department of Education Standards and Instructional Support Division for mathematics. This is in action and will occur if SNACS continues to serve high school students for the upcoming year, because that is a serious discussion with their board at this time. Another recommendation stated that there was no evidence that SNACS offered science for high school. Students earn this credit through BYU, and as per Nevada revised statutes, science courses can be taken in a chosen timeline manner. Depending on each student's transcript, students will take the required science courses before graduation, earning the necessary 23 credits for graduation. This recommendation included integrating the 3 dimensions of the standards. SNACS ensures that these required standards are offered to all of their students through the BYU component. Final recommendations included aligning instructional materials for mathematics and science. This, too, will occur in SNACS if they continue to serve high school students this coming year. Mr. Victor Schoenfeld, who is the creator of this letter, and I will turn this over to the board for part of your files, says he's open for any discussion. He welcomes any charter school or any board member visits out to his school. Essentially, Kendra Fox, our Director of Secondary for Curriculum and Instruction, her findings were based on 3 bulleted points. Those bulleted points were that the school did not submit curriculum monitoring documents for 9th grade and higher in a timely manner, so she could not complete a comprehensive review within the timeline of this performance monitoring. The school is using BYU, and she does recognize that it is an accredited correspondence course for most of their curriculum outside of the 9th grade level English. However, the lining and the integration of those credits are not correlating with our Infinite Campus transcript recognition, so an external review was difficult, if not impossible, for the curriculum and instruction audit. And last but not least, Ms. Fox says that many students were severely credit deficient due to not finishing classes during the fall semester. BYU's timeline for completion extends beyond our semester. We have specific distance education guidelines in place for our Washoe County School District students, but charter schools in their autonomous, independent correlation and usage of state curriculum materials has the authority of extending beyond the semester if necessary to support the needs of their students. So that was recognized and acknowledged. And ultimately, Mr. Church, that is why when you look at the charter performance monitoring, because you've done this a few years, I typically mark green for good to go, blue as an area of, ooh, we have some suggestions, you met the requirements, but you have some suggestions. On this audit, and I actually commend you for picking it up, it was colored orange because K through 8, they were above standard and doing phenomenal on their curriculum audit. But the high school kids, we're talking 15, the curriculum was not viewable in a timely manner for us to make a comprehensive decision. So Kendra had recommended that we recognize that they were minimally compliant, but not enough evidence to demonstrate. So that is why we make the recommendation to the board today for a minimal or marginal compliance, knowing that they are making strides to either make a change to their high school by eliminating high school offerings for next year or revisiting how they deliver the instructional method.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on this outside of that?
I do.
Yes, go ahead,
Not
Trustee
getting married,
Church.
but I do.
No, go for it.
And I can't quite pat myself on the back to catching that, but I guess thank you. The first question I have a lot of questions, and what I'm kind of hearing is some timing on them getting the information. Is there any reason, in your opinion, that maybe we couldn't defer this for another meeting and so that you can re-accomplish that?
Thank you, Mr. Church, and again, Stacy Cooper for the record. Our timelines for reporting are acknowledged and outlined in Nevada Revised Statute and in a Nevada Administrative Code. These charter monitorings are done annually. They begin almost immediately at the beginning of the year because we recognize the comprehensive nature of what we do. But unfortunately, they're due to the State Board of Education by the end of February. So I would need to request an approval or a decision by this board for a timely submission of these documents by the end of February.
Okay, then what you said so I'm going to read to you the superintendent's recommendation. The Board of Trustees approves the annual charter school performance monitoring as compliant for Sierra Nevada Academy Charter School. That's probably the number one thing that stood out to me. And I think what you're saying, if I heard right, is maybe we should change that to minimally compliant or another word. That's because that was the number one reason I said, wait a minute, apples and oranges. So can you comment on that?
I certainly can. I always shoot for the stars when I'm making a recommendation to the board, but if you note on page 2, it does say, it is the conclusion of the district's charter school performance monitoring team that the Sierra Nevada Academy Charter School has demonstrated minimal compliance with the terms and conditions of its charter agreement with the district. So if it were so proposed by this board today, I'd be more than happy to make the adjustment to reflect minimal compliance if the board so directs.
Okay, and then, Madam President, I have a lot of questions, but I think I can probably forego those if I just make a motion to approve it as minimally compliant.
Very good. Let's pause and take public comment if there's any on this item. And thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So since you did make a motion, we'll go ahead and see if there's a.
I'm prepared to.
You're prepared to. Okay. Okay.
Hopefully it's better than mine.
Okay, Trustee Westlake, do you have an additional question, or are you ready to hear Trustee Church's motion?
I did. I just, thank you for all the information. I just needed clarification. The word offered that was read, and it was towards the end, that you offer to the high school students the Brigham Young online courses. And if you could just clear that up, because to me, if you guys have accepted the responsibility to instruct these high school students, we're not offering them things. There's certain things that they're required to take for credit. So can you clarify offered? I would think it'd be more like you require them to take the online courses in order to receive those credits to be prepared for graduation. It could just be a little verbiage.
Again, Stacy Cooper for the record. Thank you, Ms. Westlake, for the clarifying question. The statement you're referring to was actually the principal's statement. We don't have authority as a sponsoring board to dictate the curriculum of our charter schools. So they have selected Brigham Young and have offered that curriculum to their students. So we don't engage in directing how, what method, or what curriculum must be used at the school site. But I'd be more than happy to take your question back to the principal for him to respond to you.
And I have a question. I appreciate where Trustee Church is going with this. Ms. Cooper, would you, or maybe this is a question for legal and not for Ms. Cooper, could we possibly have a motion that acknowledges that Sierra Nevada Academy Charter School is found compliant for K through 8, which is what I'm hearing, and then minimally compliant for 9th through 12th, or do we just have to render one compliance rating?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, you can make that type of motion. I don't know what effect that would have on the school itself, though. That would be better for you to answer, probably. Stacey.
Mr. Rombardo, if I may, and you are the legal authority, so I would lean heavily on you on this. But my take on this is that SNACS, Sierra Nevada Academy Charter, functions under one school code, and that one school code correlates directly with one charter agreement that we have with the charter school. Coral Academy, for example, they have multiple school codes. We recognize those multiple school codes with one charter agreement. So there is some wiggle room as we look towards the future when Sierra Nevada Academy Charter renews, which is in 2 years. We can make that request, but I would strongly urge that we keep things aligned under one central focus. And Mr. Rombardo, if you disagree, I'm in complete agreement to move with your direction.
Yeah, that's just information I don't have access to, but based on what you said, I would have to say I agree with Ms. Cooper on this.
Very good. All right, Trustee Church, take it away.
I motion that the Board of Trustees approves the annual charter school performance monitoring, in this case for Sierra Nevada Charter School, as minimally compliant.
I second.
Seconded by Vice President Nicolette. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Cooper. Thank you. All right, so that closes out our agenda item, and now we're going to move on to Section 3. This is our finance items. And we're going to welcome Mark Mathers, Chief Financial Officer, and Jeff Bozzo, our Budget Director, for item 3.01. This is the presentation and discussion on the Governor's recommended biennial budget for fiscal years 2023 to 24 and 24 and 25 for preliminary analysis.
Great. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. So we last met with you to talk about our budget on January 24th, and it was just the day before that the governor released his recommended budget and had a State of the State speech. And so we had noted to you that we would come back to you today to give our analysis of that recommended budget, and specifically the portion of the recommended state budget that had to do with K through 12 funding. So that's why we're here. So to start, the governor's recommended budget is built on increases to state general fund revenues that we saw in fiscal year 22. We talked to you about that, I think, a number of times, but we saw state general fund revenues increase 22% in fiscal year 22, or $1 billion more than what was budgeted. In fiscal year 23 so far is looking positive as well. Not as strong, but still positive. And so what that allows the state to do is see a much higher state budget, and as we'll see, the same kind of dynamic happened with the state education fund. We've seen tremendous growth of revenues for that fund, which allows increases to the proposed budget for next biennium. As noted, the legislature has started its review of the budget. In fact, later that week, the week of the 23rd, legislative committee heard a presentation on the K through 12 budget. So we're using numbers from that presentation. None of these numbers are fudged or guesstimates on our part. They actually are taken from those materials provided to the legislature that Friday. Of course, as you know, lots of things can change between now and then, so I just want you to keep that in mind. The May Economic Forum meeting that we've talked about will be a big, maybe a big issue, and may, change the course of the budget discussions, but we will know that when we know that, which is May. So in terms of highlights of the K through 12 portion of the governor's recommended budget, I think you've seen the headlines and the news reports, but we are very happy to report that the proposed budget for K through 12 education increases $1 billion per year, basically going from a total budget of $4.5 billion to $5.5 billion. So a significant, truly historic increase to K through 12 education that we haven't seen in a long, long time. As we'll note in the next slide, funding for base per pupil funding increased, and funding for the weighted categories of English learners and at-risk increased tremendously, almost 3 times for those 2 weighted categories. But as we'll talk about, there are real issues, at least with the at-risk weighted category and what is being proposed by the state. We'll get into this in future slides, in the next few slides, but the one area where we didn't see significant increases was state support for special education funding, which was essentially flat. That said, there were increases, significant ones, proposed for pre-K, pre-kindergarten. So that was nice to see. So again, monumental, significant increases overall to K through 12 funding. This next slide then kind of shows you graphically how base per pupil funding and weighted funding are proposed to increase. So on the slide on the left, you can see that base per pupil funding, and this is the funding that goes for all of our students, general education basically, or our general fund resources, is proposed to increase 16% in fiscal year 24, which is right on top of the 15% you put in your legislative platform. And then 5% in fiscal year 25. So again, very significant growth as we go from $3.5 billion for, again, general education services essentially in fiscal year 22 to $4.5 billion in fiscal year 25. So over 4 years, $1 billion increase. On the right, you can see a chart showing weighted funding. So again, funding for at-risk and English learners increases significantly. And these are statewide numbers, bear that in mind, but is proposed to increase significantly from the current biennium, which is fiscal years 22 and 23, to fiscal years 24 and 25, basically going up between 2.5 and 3 times. Again, though, state special ed funding is flat and only increases 1.9% annually, so that's somewhat disappointing. So when we have met with you before, we talked about kind of the metrics or areas that we would review the state budget. There were 7 areas listed here, and I'll go into them one by one. So again, the first question is, well, what did the state choose to utilize that increased state education fund revenue for? Was it split between base per pupil funding more or weighted funding more? And we saw increases to both, thankfully. So again, we've seen significant increases to our base per pupil funding. Those are the resources that we would have in our general fund for employee compensation, for class size decreases, for new initiatives, and so forth. And again, these revenues fund, the discretionary dollars we receive. So again, we go up, depending on how what years you compare, between $500 million and $1 billion. So that was a welcome news, that we saw additional resources in that area. And then our second metric was to look at the amount budgeted for weighted funding. And so again, we've talked about at-risk and English learners being increased significantly. So this will be a major area of focus, and Deputy Superintendent and I talked about it this morning, how to utilize those additional resources in a strategic, organized, comprehensive way. So that'll be a tall task for us, as if this money is materialized and we see this in the final budget approved by the state. As I noted, there's a couple issues, though, with at-risk funding. One of them has to do with the use of an index or a grad score for each student in the state. This came up at the Commission on School Funding, and I raised the question, but ultimately the Commission went with a calculation that would provide at-risk funding for the bottom 20% of, if you will, the lowest 20% of grad scores for all students statewide. And to some of us, to arbitrarily cut it off at 20% without much explanation seems odd to us. So prior to this proposal, the state used the free and reduced lunch metric to identify at-risk children, which has problems with it. But that represented almost half of the student population. So we've gone from half of the student population statewide to being considered at risk to now 20%. Another issue with this at-risk grad score that would be utilized based on kind of the educator's review of this measure is there's some components to that grad score that we feel may be subjective and maybe not consistently applied by school districts. So we're not sure how that would work. So there's some issues with the at-risk metric that is proposed to be used, and I know the legislature has already begun looking at that and asking questions. So we'll see where that all ends up. I would note, though, the increase in funding is significant. Again, roughly 3 times what is currently funded, so I don't want to minimize that. But there are areas of discussion that, the legislature is already having about that weight and how at-risk students are defined.
Thank you. If I can jump in there, I really appreciate that, because that was one of my top concerns, is that as much as I appreciate the additional funding, that's because our state has additional revenues, but only funding one category still does not allow us to fundamentally meet the needs of students that fall. But it sounds like they're having these conversations, and it's already been identified as an area where we need to have a discussion about improvement. Okay, thank you.
Yes, and you just noted, the last sub-bullet point there, that the pupil-centered funding plan continues to fund us just for one category, the highest category that a student may be in. So if a student is an English learner but also at risk, we'll only receive funding for the English learner services that student requires, and we would not receive funding for the at-risk services the student would require. So I know this board has flagged that as a serious issue, and I know it's come up. So we'll see where that goes. The third area of the state budget that we reviewed, which we've already talked about, is the third area, we haven't talked about it really before, is how the state projected the revenues for the state education fund. And so this, again, under the pupil-centered funding plan, virtually all resources to school districts are budgeted and pooled together at a state level in the state education fund. So the state education fund includes revenues like the 75-cent rate, school operating rate of the property tax, the local school support tax, or our share of sales tax, certain hotel taxes in Clark County, a number of other revenues. And so We wanted to make sure the state made reasonable projections of those revenues, and we've reviewed their projections, and we do in fact think they're reasonable. So we don't think the state was ultra conservative in projecting those revenues next biennium, so that's good. They get good marks from us in that area. The fourth area that we promised to look at for you is a little bit more complicated, and so we've got a couple slides here that I know might be a little difficult to understand and read, so let me go through those real carefully. But this fourth area that we wanted to look at was the level of the state funding for K through 12. And so how the state helps fund K through 12 education is by a transfer from the state general fund to the state education fund. And so on the chart to the left, we're tracking budgeted versus actual state general fund revenues. And I should say, under the pupil-centered funding plan and under Senate Bill 543 of the 2019 session, basically the level of state support should track with state general fund revenue growth. If state general fund revenues are projected to go up 5%, then the state's general fund transfer to the state education fund should go up 5% as well. And so that's what we're tracking here. Did the state adhere to that principle in 543? So first, let's talk about, again, state general fund revenue on the left chart. So the blue line there is what the state budgeted for state general fund revenues in 22 and 23. But as we talked about, state general fund revenues were much higher than what was budgeted. So the orange line shows you actual or projected for this current year state general fund revenues. And basically, again, as we noted, state general fund revenues are at $1 billion higher annually than what was budgeted. The green dashed line shows you the Economic Forum's projection of general fund revenues. So they're building off the higher actual or projected general fund revenues that we've seen. Makes sense, right? The chart on the right is a computation of what the state general fund transfer would be based on budgeted numbers versus actual numbers. And so just like you can see in the chart to the left, we decouple. And so do you base the state general fund transfer to the state education fund based on what was budgeted in the current budget? Or do you base the state general fund transfer for next biennium based on actuals received this biennium? And there's a big difference there naturally. And so that's the question, and that's the area of opportunity, I'll call it, for education advocates. We, as an appendix to this presentation deck, we calculated both ways. And so if you base it off of actual and projected general fund revenues, we're indicating that the state general fund transfer to K through 12 should be higher than what is proposed in the recommended budget. If, on the other hand, you base it on the budgeted state general fund revenues, then the state funded their transfer to state education funds slightly higher than what that would indicate. So they're somewhere in the middle of that blue and orange line, if you will. Again, we feel like states receive these monies in fiscal year 22. Fiscal year 23 is tracking well. There's no evidence of a decline in revenues yet year over year. So we feel like there's a reasonable expectation that the state would honor the spirit of SB 543 and calculate its transfer based on actual and projected revenues in the current biennium. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more in a future slide. I hope those two charts are clear, because we've worked a lot to try to make this as clear as possible.
I think you've done a brilliant job of showing what the revenues the states have versus how education's actually been funded. So I think it's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. So the fifth area that we promised you that we would look at is what's called infamously now by maybe some people, the Nevada Cost of Education Index. And this is that cost of living and cost of wages index we've talked about a lot. In September, the Commission on School Funding unanimously voted to eliminate that adjustment, that equity adjustment based on this index. It was considered by the financial experts that sit on the Commission to be too volatile of an index, and it's not something that we could consistently budget around. And, it's frankly fairly controversial. There's always going to be winners and losers to that equity adjustment, and it's a not very transparent calculation. So there's all kinds of issues with that index, which is why the commission unanimously, without one dissent, voted to eliminate the adjustment. Unfortunately, the governor's recommended budget continues that adjustment. There was an update by the economists contracted by the state to prior calculations, and based on the materials, again, distributed by the state, currently Clark County School District and charters in Clark County School District are the only entities to receive a positive adjustment in that index. So they're the only entities that are calculated or shown to be above 1.0. So that's an area where I know our Northern Nevada legislators have already noticed and are working with us to attempt to address and work with the rest of the legislature to resolve that issue. But that's obviously a big issue for us. The sixth area that we promised to look at were the state's assumptions of inflation reasonable. So, you know, budget people can sometimes play games. Sorry, Jeff. And sometimes lowball inflation. The spirit or the principle in SB 543 here is that school districts' funding would increase by at least a combination of inflation growth and enrollment growth. And so, and SB 543 talks about the inflation measure to use, which is the inflation rate for the western region of the U.S. in the prior calendar year, which was 6.2%. Unfortunately, we don't see that inflation rate being used, and specifically, again, for state special education, we fall well below a 6.2% inflation rate if we're only being funded to increase by 2%. So we would note that to you. And then the last area of analysis or question is really more of a policy question, and that is, how are the surplus state education fund revenues experienced in fiscal year 22 and 23, i.e. the revenues that came in above budget, how are those proposed to be used? And it appears to us that the entire amount of excess revenues or surplus revenues are proposed to be held in the education stabilization account, which is analogous to a rainy day fund for education. It is a reserve account that would be accessed by schools in a recessionary scenario. So in a recession, if per pupil revenues declined by more than 3%, then school districts could access that education stabilization account or reserves to backfill lost revenues. So there's a good reason for the account, but the question is $730 million in that account the right number, or is it too high? It is nearly the maximum set in law. So $730 million represents 13% of the total pupil-centered funding plan budget, and the maximum is 15%. So I guess you could say they've almost fully funded the stabilization account. But this is a policy choice of the state, just like when you have a policy choice about where to set our target fund balance, you can set it right anywhere, basically. So can the state. So what is that right number, and are there needs of school districts that have a higher priority on that funding than establishing a reserve that high? That's a policy decision, but an important one. So we wanted to kind of highlight to you what the recommended budget proposes.
Yes.
So, wrapping, yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank you, Diane. I apologize.
No.
Vice President Nicolette.
It's riveting. It really is.
I'm engrossed.
It is. This is a good time to talk about this account. So, I read SB 543 over and over again, and I still can't wrap my mind around. So, we will have to give money back if we reach a certain threshold, and that money will then go into this account.
Yes, so there are two ways this account is funded.
Thank you.
The larger way, which is what you see here, is during a biennium if actual revenues are higher than budgeted revenues. Any of that excess revenues kind of just as a waterfall goes into the stabilization account until it can be appropriated next biennium, right? So it'd be like our budget. if we see revenues higher than expected in our budget, it flows into our fund balance, and then we have a conversation about how to use it in the next budget year, right? That's the first way the stabilization account is funded. The second way is if a district's fund balance is over 16%. And that, now, those districts already over 16% are grandfathered in. But if you were at 12, you'd have had 12% fund balance, which is where we're kind of at, and you went over 16%, any amount over 16% would be swept and clawed back by the state to go into the stabilization account.
Thank you. Having come from Nevada System of Higher Ed, I get that sweeping thing. So it behooves us as a district, as a school board, and professionals to monitor that closely, because it's really not a good idea to give money back.
Generally not.
Generally. So we will discuss that later from a timing standpoint and how we make sense of that. Yes?
Yes, and I'm simplifying. There was a regulation or a quasi-regulation issued by the Department of Ed, and they include other funds in the calculation that really serve to we're not at 12%. Based on their calculations, we're lower than that. But yeah, it's something the finance team monitors, and we would never want to give back money if we didn't have to.
Thank you for that.
Yes. So in conclusion, I don't want to minimize the historic increases this governor's recommended budget holds for K through 12. These are the largest increases we've seen, I think, forever, but I'll just say, just to be safe, in a long, long time. This, it's a game changer. It's a new era for Washoe County School District and other school districts. What comes with that is, great responsibility. And we will need to work hard during the budget season to strategize about the uses of that money. But it's sure a nice problem to have. Again, these increases to proposed appropriations for K through 12 really come about, as we talked about, because of the greater revenues we saw in fiscal year 22, where sales tax just went through the roof. And that has continued. We've kind of ramped up in terms of overall revenues that go into the state education fund. We haven't come down yet. And that has allowed this increase to funding that you see. So, you see my last bullet point, the conclusion is the pupil-centered funding model is working the way it should. There's nothing heroic or above and beyond the call of duty that the governor and legislature are proposing here, right? They're not taking $1 billion out of the state general fund, $1 billion more, and allocating it to K through 12 or anything. This is all predicated on increased state education fund revenues. And so the model works the way it's supposed to, because the prior Nevada plan allowed the state to supplant that increased state education fund revenue, or DSA revenue, we called it at the time, and allowed the state to lower its general fund commitment to K through 12, which is what you see in the chart to the right. So every year when state or school restricted revenues increased, that just meant the state's general fund transfer into the DSA was decreased. And we just, kept on the hamster wheel and never saw those increases. The great thing about the new funding formula at the state is that should not happen, and it is not happening under this proposed budget. So generally, the state is being faithful to the spirit and principles in SB 543, which is a really great thing. And again, it's a new era, but we've always got to make sure the state kind of follows that roadmap established in SB 543. They generally are this coming biennium. But again, it's historic. It's a new era for the school district. We have lots of decisions to make going forward based on that increased funding, and Jeff's going to give you the headlines for Washoe School District in a minute.
Mr. Marlis, could we pause one moment? I see Trustee Church. Do you have a question on this slide, or do you
the
have
basic
something
summary?
for later?
So whenever
at the end, okay.
But before Jeff starts, but on this part,
okay,
because Jeff keeps interrupting Mr. Masters.
Yeah. He's like that. Can't control him. So there are some opportunities, we believe, to enhancing education funding this session and going beyond what's proposed in the recommended budget. We've talked about state general fund support. We think there's a very reasonable case to be made, to put it lightly, that we should be receiving more general fund revenues in this budget. I think, as most of you know, the Democratic Party did propose an increase of $250 million to provide a matching program for salary and other compensation increases for district personnel, which was wonderful to hear. But that clearly is an area of opportunity. Weighted funding, we've talked about some of those areas where, you know, we could try to do better, and I know our legislative partners are working on it and having those discussions. Likewise, we've talked many times about the cost of living, cost of wages index, and I know they're working on it. You know, this week we've had discussions about, you know, how to address that issue. And then, of course, there's this $730 million that's sitting in the stabilization account, and again, kind of a policy decision there about are there other uses for that money that are warranted at this time. So that concludes our analysis of the state's recommended budget at this juncture, and specifically the K through 12 funding piece of the budget. So I'm happy to answer any questions before I do turn it over to Jeff.
Thank you. I see hands pointing my way, so I'll start off. So hopefully there's not going to be a quiz on this, because I'm not going to pass it well. But reading back 5 different issues I want to cover quickly. Basically, it's a 1-year proposal from the governor. It's going to go 2-year proposal, thank you. It's going to go through the sausage mill of the legislature, and what comes out at the other end is likely to be much different. Is that a good synopsis?
It might be much different, it might not. A lot depends on, again, the May Economic Forum and legislative priorities, but again, we kind of have split government right now, so you would think that's probably right? We're probably in a narrower band of scenarios, but we'll see.
And then the per pupil formula, I'm hearing, is not changing, so we're basically still getting a deficit or hosed, however you want to say it. Is that correct?
No, we're as Jeff will show you in the next slide, we're going to see, based on what materials have been presented, a significant increase in base per pupil funding and at-risk and English learners weighted funding. Okay. Truly dramatic increases.
So I guess my question is, the per pupil funding formula, does that still need to be advocated for change? The actual formula?
No.
Okay.
This is so the pupil-centered funding plan is the new funding formula that was enacted in law in 2019 with a 2-year implementation phase that we're now in. The one part of the pupil-centered funding plan that we think should be adjusted particularly is the Nevada Cost of Education Equity Adjustment.
Yes, that part.
But this is a new funding formula at the state that, again, is superior in our eyes than the old Nevada plan, where the state would supplant education revenues with general fund revenues. Now it is building on top of each other like it always should have. So, I mean, the new funding scheme is working, you know, the way we would have hoped it would work.
Okay.
Really quick, if I can chip in, and I see you, Trustee Mayberry, I'll go to you next. I think just as a point of clarification, what you might have been getting at was that under this plan, which has not yet been changed, Washoe would still come in last of all counties in the state. Even with all this additional funding, the fundamental issue that Washoe County would be funded 17th out of 17 is still in the current plan, but we remain optimistic that that could change.
Exactly.
Well, actually, I don't think we're 17th any longer. I think we're 16th now. But certainly that NCEI equity adjustment needs to be corrected. But yes.
Well, we will advocate for number 17 because we feel their pain. So nobody should be 17 in my book. I didn't mean to cut in on you, but I wanted to bring clarification.
Sure, and I'll try and. So yeah, thank you for that. That's exactly what I was trying to say. Not too well. what I think I'm hearing, you were talking about funding for at-risk kids and the way that was, and I know the governor, he's brand new, he just got elected, he's got to get this out quick and it's going to go through the mill. But what I think I'm hearing is that money's going to be dedicated. We can't use that for pay raises. We have to use that for what they tell us. Is that correct?
If there are personnel that are funded out of those weighted categories, they would be eligible to receive the same level of compensation increases that a teacher in budgeted in our general fund would. It can't be used just to provide compensation increases. So you couldn't take the whole, if we were to get 30 million in one category, we can't take the 30 million and then use it for compensation increases for teachers in the general fund. Mm-hmm. But certainly, no, all of our teachers would be held at a parity level. And so some of that funding could go for compensation increases for those personnel budgeted in that fund.
In that fund, okay,
Yeah.
Good. And then I looked in here and I didn't see the word school choice because I kind of want to maybe see if that was going to be an issue. And then on slide 10, and I may be stealing some of Jeff's thunder there, Mr. Bezos' thunder, but just to clarify, we're projecting 60,000 students from that slide. The reason I bring it up, didn't mention it under consent, but there was a previous issue that used a different figure. But is that roughly what we're looking at?
We rounded. Jeff will speak to that when we get to that slide. We just rounded at 60,000. We don't project 60,000, but for rounding purposes, we thought we'd just go with that number.
Thank you. All right. Trustee Mayberry, one moment though, just to make sure that everyone's oriented on this. This is just an item for discussion. So definitely let's get our questions out, but everybody's going to get ready because on the 28th we have our budget work session and that becomes more action oriented. So I just want the public to know that right now we're just doing a presentation for discussion, but we have a full work session on this in 2 weeks. Okay. Trustee Mayberry.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate that. And thank you, Mr. Mathers. I know this isn't your budget, or I would probably be addressing you as Governor Mathers. But so I'm not going to pick it apart. I mean, this is clearly a real chance to change the trajectory of how we do business in education here in the state. It's very, very positive, particularly given that both sides, the executive branch and legislative branch are opposing parties. So we're moving in the right direction. So I have I guess a question and more of a comment. I'll give you my comment first, and it's sort of directed to my colleagues and the superintendent. Is I am as pleased as I am with what I'm hearing and seeing. I am puzzled, and it does pain my heart a little bit that the special education funding is flat. I mean, these are and I guess I'm also a little, maybe you can clarify the difference between at-risk and special ed, because I mean our special ed students are clearly vulnerable, at risk, and it covers so many areas. I mean, those that are hard of hearing, speech pathology, you name it. So and we know we have challenges. I mean, we know we have a high caseload of special education students throughout the district. So I can't fathom why that number would be flat, given the challenges we're facing. And so I hope that our superintendent and our legislative team, and our president, vice president, leadership team on this board continue to advocate in that direction to see those numbers increase for special education. It's absolutely paramount that we do so, particularly given the position that we're in, which is a very positive position. Secondly, so the question I have is just for you, is sort of a bottom line question, and that is, in fact, I wrote this down so I kept my mind clear. Are we making up any significant ground on the national average piece, which, I mean, fundamentally, I think is really sort of where we should be aiming for? I mean, how would you address that, Mark?
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. I mean, this is a historic increase to funding on a per pupil basis for the state of Nevada, but it does not address decades of underfunding education in the state. And as you know, as an example, just this fiscal year, our per pupil funding is going up 1.3%. So, I mean, and we've seen that year after year. So, no, this does not make up for those decades of underfunding. Generally, when we look at national averages for per pupil funding, Nevada's been roughly $4,000 per pupil under the average of the 50 states. As Jeff will tell you in a second, we would see an increase of roughly $1,500 per pupil on the base per pupil side. You probably heard an increase of $2,000 in the state budget, and that includes the increases to weighted funding. So overall, with all funds included, $2,000 per pupil increase. When you look at just base per pupil, more like $1,500, $1,600, $1,700, depending on the school district. So, but we know other states have enjoyed booming economies too, so they're probably moving up somewhat along the same trajectory we are. So, no, this doesn't, I mean, it makes up some ground, but not all of the ground. And, you know, the Commission on School Funding has looked at where adequate funding should be, optimal funding should be. It is more than $1 billion. It is some multiple of $1 billion, which is a huge number. But we know we've not tracked against cost of living increases for other professions, so we know we're short on compensation for our employees. We know class sizes in Nevada are roughly double the rest of the nation or the nation's average. So just those two facets alone, the wage gap of teachers and other personnel at the school district and twice the class sizes is the average of the nation, that alone is several $billion at least. So this doesn't address all of it, which is a great prelude to say, even though we'll be receiving much greater funding next biennium, it will only go so far in addressing those and other needs. We know we're under-resourced in many areas of the district as well. So, no, it's historic, but it does not come close to addressing the gap between Nevada per pupil funding and the national average.
Thank you for your candor. Thank you, Madam President.
With that, I'll turn it over to Jeff to talk about Washoe specifically. He gets the good news to deliver this time.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, last time I was up here in front of you all, I got to deliver bad news of our $15 million preliminary deficit, so I'll share some good news today. So on January 27th, the Nevada Department of Education shared their preliminary figures with the public and the legislature based on the governor's recommended budget. And what that shows is our per pupil amount increasing from $7,318 in the current year to $8,879 next year. That's an increase of $1,561, just over 21% increase to our base per pupil funding amount. You know, we have an estimate of 60,000 students. We're projecting enrollment of just under 60,000 next year, so we'll have a fine-tuned number at the work session when we see you next time. But roughly in total, what that means is we'll have about $93 million in additional funding to base our spending decisions around. That doesn't include the net impact of those enrollment shortfalls. So when we take out that $15 million, that puts us around $78 million. Again, we're sharpening our pencils and fine-tuning some numbers that we'll bring back to you in a couple of weeks. But that's the pot of money that we're going to be basing these budget decisions around during the spring. So I have some more information on that on the next slide. But also just wanted to point out, I think Mark did this earlier, that we do expect significant increases in our English learner and at-risk funding categories as well. So this next slide here is, I'm hoping will provide some structure around the budget process moving forward. So the green bar on the left side, we have a board policy that says we need to maintain a structurally balanced budget, so we need to keep that in mind while we're making these decisions. that $15 million deficit due to the enrollment shortfall, that's that yellow box there. We've already accounted for that in the budget process. So that remaining $78 million or so will be centered around decisions on employee compensation, if we want to make adjustments to class size reduction or other staffing guideline changes. There is a bill around class size reduction that will get more detail to you on that the next time we see you, but that has a budgetary impact as well. And then funding understaffed area or new programs or new initiatives that come out of the strategic plan, along with addressing departments' critical needs that we talked about addressing the best we can during this budget process. So I hope that helps provide some structure of where we're headed during the budget process. Mark, is there anything you wanted to add? If not, we can open it up to questions.
No, we just wanted to kind of prescribe for you kind of what we think are the 3 or 4 main buckets you would look at when we talk about the budget going forward. Huge policy decisions that you will have. The trick of this, for those who've been on the board during legislative sessions, is we don't know what mandates may come down from the state, or the state certainly could make decisions about, they could pass a bill somewhat setting guardrails on what we spend and how. You know, with greater funding comes greater accountability as well. So I know you know all of that. So it'll certainly be, to put it mildly, an interesting budget process. But we're looking forward to working with you on it. And it's, again, a new era. It's nice to have this problem of how to spend $90 million. Because we've never had anything close to that before. So we know it's going to be challenging to go through it, and while at the same time the legislature is meeting, but we will get through it. We can defer certain decisions, certainly, until we get clarity after the session ends. So, you know, we'll go through with you step by step and walk you through it.
Thank you so much for that. We'll go ahead and take questions again, just as a reminder that we have our work session in 2 weeks. My question, though, is, so we have the funding that we know we're getting. So we've got the bird in the hand, and then we have 2 potentially juicy birds in the bush. So I will look to you for guidance through our workshop process, because there's the money we know we have, and then there's the potential. And I keep hearing that we'll know more after the economic forum, although we really, really won't know until something actually passes. How do we create a budget that on the one hand reflects what we know we have, and how do we project out? I mean, that knowing that we have to get the budget in by a certain amount of time, could this really turn into like a photo finish? I really want to make sure we keep this line of communication open so that we can explore what these other options are and we're ready to act. But there's not very much time.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, what we've done in the past, and I think where we would move to is basically constructing a tentative budget based on what we know, and reaching as many decisions about how to allocate those dollars as we possibly can. We'll have that teed up. We'll certainly be on the watch for that economic forum meeting in early May. As you know, the final budget is due by law on June 8th. However, during legislative years, we have 30 days after the session to file an amended final budget. So I think, you know, we used to joke in prior odd-numbered years about how our final budget was really a tentative budget. And that'll somewhat be the case. The final budget we file on June 8th will only be a few days after the session ends, and we won't have an opportunity because of open meeting law to meet with you to talk about it and make adjustments. But we will have 30 days after the end of the session to do that. So that would be the plan. Certainly we're allowed to fund a contingency account and defer certain decisions, again, based on the completion of our strategic plan, We also have collective bargaining that will happen over the summer, and so that, they can't be pinned down in terms of compensation until then. So I hope that answers your question, but we do have 30 days after this session to file an amended budget based on possible adjustments that we see.
It does. And there'll also be a mechanism as we work through our workshops, and I know that there's some ideas about how we can bring forth ideas for this additional funding, in addition to some of the things that we've publicly talked about around staff, salary, and class sizes and things like that. So I look forward to those conversations. Trustee Westlake.
Thank you, Madam President. So, Mr. Mathers, would it be cost prohibitive to prepare two budgets? I mean, the one that we know for sure we have and the one that we think we're going to have. So that's my first question. And even though the state funding is flat on for our special ed, could we, as the board, could we push more money towards special ed and more money towards teachers' compensation in the hopes, like that other budget that we're hoping to get? Or do you think the state is going to mandate that we can only put so much money towards special ed? Is that confusing? Sorry.
Well, I just want to clarify. We talk and we're saying based on what we know we have. When I'm hearing that, I'm understanding that to be based on the materials that were passed out in January that gave us these figures we've shared. I don't actually know that's going to be the final number, but that's another good aspect of the pupil-centered funding plan. At least we get those numbers. We used to be completely in the dark about what our per pupil number would be until the very end of the session. So when you say what we know we have, I think that's what you mean, right? Based on the numbers we've shared with you today. I guess our recommendation would be to go ahead and construct a budget based on those numbers, because it's far easier to make adjustments based on, right, either slightly lower or slightly higher numbers that may come out after May through June 5th when the session ends. It's easier to graft on kind of decisions onto at least a tentative document and a tentative plan. I just wouldn't know how to base an alternative budget on, right? So, right, you could base an alternative budget on a recession scenario, right? The Economic Forum could choose to reduce revenue projections in May if they saw a recession hit and they saw a turn in revenues downward. So that's one scenario. On the other scenario, again, we have a proposal to increase funding for K through 12 by $250 million. And another scenario would be the Economic Forum adjusts its revenue estimates higher. So there's, right, a number of different scenarios, and although we've done parallel budgets in the past, there was a very specific reasons why we did that, and I think this will be complex enough to go through one tentative budget that I don't propose two alternative budgets, because again, we could see a third or a fourth alternative scenario when all's said and done. So I think what we would like to do is recommend to you a budget based on those numbers that the state has provided us, move forward on that basis, then make adjustments afterwards as new information comes to light.
All right, thank you. Trustee Mayberry.
Thank you, Madam President. This is short. I should know this. This is my second budget cycle, but so I feel like I'm a veteran now. Speaking of process, what do you seek? Will we seek input, confer with our bargaining associations with respect to what their spending priorities may be as we go down this path?
I think that the challenges we have for our bargaining units is that they will want to see what the final budget looks like as well. We've had some discussions, for instance, when we were negotiating that January adjustment with them about some concepts, but really the collective bargaining process won't begin in earnest until the session's over, because at that point we will in fact know where our funding is. And so any discussions really ahead of that are truly preliminary, right? I
appreciate that. I guess the thrust of my question is input from our employees. How can they contribute to the process, to the budgeting process, to the spending priorities?
If I can, I think that we have a really wonderful opportunity here, and that in parallel we'll also be doing our strategic plan, and our staff in the community and we as trustees will create a roadmap for our priorities for the next several years, and they will be a part of that process, and I believe we will be able to extrapolate out those priorities and layer that on top of this funding to make efficient decisions, although there will still be opportunity for feedback, but we have a really unique opportunity with those things happening together.
Yeah, no, I agree, but they're on the front lines, and I think we should allow them to be part of that process, period. Thank you.
President Smith, might I add something?
Yes, absolutely, Superintendent Enfield.
Thank you. Since you can't see me, I know, it's like a voice from the heavens. Sorry about that. I appreciate Trustee Mayberry's question. And one thing that I would offer is I do think hearing what people's priorities are is important. And actually, I just recently did a thought exchange with staff asking what they'd like to hear about from me when I give them my monthly messages, and salary came out top. We could definitely do a thought exchange that allows staff to weigh in on what their priorities are in the budget, and as you know, with thought exchange, allow them to star other people, so we could really get a sense of what the real priorities are across our system. So that might be one way to efficiently get as much input as possible from staff. Trustee Mayberry.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, that's what's on my mind. I just want to make sure that it's somewhat inclusive. Thank you.
All right, well, thanks everyone. This was a great conversation, and I don't know about you, but I am so excited for the work session and to do this work. So thank you so much, Mr. Mathers and Mr. Bozzo. We'll go ahead and close that for item 3.01. We have a bit of a schedule change. We're going to go ahead and next move to items for presentation, so item 4. And we're going to go to, or section 4, we're going to actually go to item 4.02, our quality of education and discussion and presentation of School Spotlight, to highlight the success of students attending Darrell C. Swope Middle School. This is for presentation and discussion. And I'd like to go ahead and welcome Dr. Troy Parks, Dr. Mike Paul, and Mike Nakashima, principal of Swope Middle School. And I have to grab my I have mine too. Hello, everyone, and welcome.
Make sure everybody makes it in. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, President Smith. Superintendent Enfield, I believe she's still with us. Is that correct? Okay. Deputy Superintendent Keogh and members of the board. I am Area Superintendent Mike Paul, and I am pleased to be here today with a team of superstars from Swope Middle School, led by Principal Mike Nakashima. I've had the opportunity of serving Swope for these last 2 years, and in that time I have been able to watch Mr. Nakashima lead quite a transformation at Swope. So as you all know, we have had quite an expansion into the building at Swope, and along with that expansion of a spectacular expansion of that building at Swope, several hundred new students have also come with that expansion now that we are open. So it has grown by leaps and bounds, and I think one of the things that I, as an area superintendent, am the most proud about is while we have had that school community expand so tremendously over this last year or so, that dynamic staff of teachers and staff in the community at Swope has welcomed the students with open arms, all several hundred of them, and has really built that sense of community and have never taken their eye off of increasing student learning and continuing to do that and build that community and welcome all of those students into their school. And it is all of their kids in all of their schools still. They're not outsiders, nobody is, and they're continuing to build that school, so it is really great to see that. So without further ado, I am going to welcome Principal Nakashima up to the front and get this show on the road to highlight all of the great things that are going on at SWOPE.
Welcome, Principal Nakashima. Yes. Hello, we have Vice Principal Gilbert here too. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Area Superintendent Dr. Paul, for the introduction. I'd like to also thank Superintendent Dr. Enfield, President Beth Smith, Deputy Superintendent Keogh, and the Board of Trustees for inviting us to share with you all the exceptional data and happenings at Swope Middle School. My name is Mike Nakashima, and I'm the proud principal of Swope Middle School, and it is an honor to be recognized for the growth of our students made last year in comparison to pandemic and pre-pandemic testing scores, as well as celebrate our culture in this spotlight of success. I know Eva is anxiously awaiting to be recognized as our superstar because she is thinking about volleyball that's taking place right now. So I'm going to move forward. My first year at school, at Swope Middle School, I learned many of the traditions of the school and the community, as well as the strength of family involvement. My second focus was to engage with our teachers to understand areas where we could make improvements. I learned and continued to understand that our teachers are very motivated to improve student learning and had ideas to engage them. Our instructional leaders were ready to take action and wanted permission. In talking with our Dean of Students, Mr. Gilbert at the time, and current assistant principal, we talked about building a culture of being able to take risks, persevere, and fail forward. My first focus was to engage our students and families to gain an idea of areas where growth could be made. Our students wanted to be engaged in the decision-making process, and I needed to find ways to help incoming students break down the stresses of transitioning from the elementary schools to the middle school. So I reached out to our student leadership class and Eva Lambert. Eva Lambert is a leader amongst our students, recognized for the way she balances her challenging academic classes in the GT Magnet, participates in athletics with a positive attitude, and always shares a smile with all of our students, whether she knows them or is just learning them as they enter our school. She's a great communicator, much better than I, who not only works to support our students and teachers, but works to make things better each day. Her teachers and coaches recognize her as goal-oriented, and she represents SWOPE and the proud characteristics of perseverance, respect, organization, work ethic, and leadership. I asked Eva to explain a little bit about what she and her peers in our student leadership have done to help support Swope Middle School. So without further ado, Eva Lambert.
Good afternoon, members of the school board. I'm Eva. I'm a student at Swope Middle School in 8th grade. I love going to Swope. And I'm not saying this just because when deciding on a middle school I wanted to go to, I had no choice because I'm zoned for Swope. I'm saying this because I genuinely love going to school every day because it's Swope. My teachers, my peers, the staff, the location, everything about Swope I love. I'm very active at Swope. I participate on the volleyball team, I'm part of student leadership, and I'm a part of the GT Magnet program. I love being in Magnet because I will get the preparation I need to get ahead in high school and help me think about my future career. In leadership, we help plan almost all the activities and fundraisers that goes on at our school. We have committees that focus on different things that go on at our school. Some of these committees are the Assembly Committee, Spirit Week Committee, Activity Day Committee, and many others. The process that goes on in these committees is very organized. We first learn about the committees, then choose a committee we are most interested in to participate in. At this point, we have a folder with all the information we need to fill out. First, we make a proposal PowerPoint with a plan, then meet with administration about that plan and get it approved. Specifically when planning our annual before winter break activity day, leadership sends an email out to teachers asking them what activity room they would be interested in hosting, and we like to keep our committee student operated, but also still give the staff flexibility. One major thing that leadership planned out last year and will continue to do this year is a mini tour and orientation for our incoming 6th and 7th grade students last year. They came out on buses and we led them to our gym to give them an introduction. Then we separated them into groups that would lead them to different stations around the school. These stations included opening lockers, going through the office, looking through the library, and many others. We hosted around 650 students, and after these tours, they would hopefully feel less nervous about starting middle school. At the beginning of this specific school year, leadership met together to plan for the upcoming school year. Then we led the official 6th and 7th grade orientation days, which is called Panther Day, helping them find their classes, open their lockers, and give them their schedules. Leadership also participates in community service outside of our school. As a leadership student, we are required to complete community service hours on our own. This allows us to expand our relations and grow our skills as leaders. We also host a food drive in conjunction with the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority, where we create large baskets for our own SWOT families in need. Participating in all these things gets me prepared for the future because I get to practice the skills of being a leader and planning things out. I love being at SWOPE, and I'm very grateful I get to be part of the many things that go around at our school and our community.
Absolutely outstanding. Thank you so much. As a SWOPE mom who actually participated in Panther Days ahead of this year's school year, I want to say thank you so much. It was a really well-run event, and you just demonstrated exactly why you are the WCSD Student Superstar, which we proudly present to Eva Lambert in recognition for your outstanding contribution to your school and our community. We honor you as a WCSD Student Superstar, and now we would like to welcome up our school administrators, Eva and her family, to take some photos. So congratulations.
Team, I also wanted to share to Eva, on behalf of Superintendent Enfield, we have a pin for you. It's the Superintendent's Achievement Award pin. And so we will be presenting that to you too right now. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. Congratulations on being a model student, and we're so excited about your future.
All right, thank you everyone for that. And now we welcome our school administrators back from SWOPE to tell us the success story around this middle school.
Okay, so now I would like to introduce Mr. Gilbert, former dean and current assistant principal at Swope Middle School, to speak a little bit about our demographics and our family.
So I'm Ian Gilbert. I'm the assistant principal now. It's been a long time. I worked really hard to become the assistant principal there because it's home, it's family, it's my community. My kids are going to go there in 2 years, so it's really where I wanted to be, and then to work with this guy. So we currently have 5 elementary schools that feed our SWOPE family, and each elementary school, as everyone knows, has their own culture and their own community. And one of my favorite things is when they come there, they start out in little pockets of their school or where they're from, and then it takes days for them to become part of SWOPE community. So that's fun to watch. That's fun for me. And that is the greatest phenomenon of SWOPE, is that it happens quickly and everyone is part of the family quick, and it's fun to see. There's always the exception, the kids that had new kids, other students from different sports around the neighborhood. We have swim teams and soccer and baseball. So they've seen them, they're friends with them there, but when they get to SWOPE, they're there with them the whole day. And it's these little communities, these little families that come together and build the Panther community that we have now. Our staff is equally diverse. We have 5 brand new teachers this year. We have teachers that are veterans that served in the military. We have veteran teachers that are veterans to education. We have teachers from other schools that they've heard about the SWOPE community and they want to be part of it. And so we all come together, and I'm hoping that the 5 brand new teachers can then retire from SWOPE too, so that no one leaves. It's great when we have those things happen. And what binds us all together is our desire to help our students become successful. And it's done by the desire to never rest on what we've done in the past, not rest on what's happening now, but look at how we can improve for the future. Our science teachers have taken standards-based grading, and they're looking at that, and they're trying to do something different, and just to continue to improve our scores as we go through and really engage our students in science. We're looking at becoming the first middle school in northern Nevada to be governor-designated STEM school. So that's coming around the corner. And it's because of our neighborhood community. At our open houses every year, every single time, we'll have grandparents come in and talk about how proud they are of SWOPE and how their kids have went through, their grandkids are now going through. And when Mr. Nakashima got hired, he went to the baseball games at the Pyramid because it's a big part of the community. And I think he didn't even tell them that he was the new principal at SWOPE. Grandparents knew he was the new principal at SWOPE and had to let him know how much they were excited that he was coming, and the expectations of what SWOPE brings to the community. Our students and staff work hard to put themselves out there, and they're willing to try new things and different things, and in a community where we sometimes fail, but we're always failing forward, and we're moving forward, and that's the leadership that comes with Mr. Nakashima too. So.
You're too kind.
And that's you.
Thank you. I'd like to now introduce Mrs. Anne Marie Hoppy, instructional leader of ELA at SWOPE Middle School, to speak about her experiences at SWOPE and recognize the accomplishments in ELA growth this past year, where SWOPE saw the greatest increase in SBAC scores for middle schools when compared to past years.
So since I became instructional leader at SWOPE, our department has been working toward developing a culture of reading and a culture of engagement. Little did I know 5 years ago when I assumed this responsibility that we would be faced with years of construction, a quarantine, hybrid, and excessive spoke days. Our department, along with our amazing librarian, have worked hard to implement the principles of this book, Atomic Habits, always my tattered copy, by James Clear. And it contends that small, positive, and seemingly inconsequential efforts each day make a huge difference in overall performance. At SWOPE, we believe every minute of engagement, every book checked out, every extra minute that kids want to read, and every connection we make with students contributes to the overall culture. So our department remains steadfast through the pandemic and all the other challenges of the last 3 years to foster a culture of engagement and high expectations for all of our students. Not every day is perfect. In fact, most of them are not perfect. But because of our supportive administration who values our professional judgments, we are able to take those risks to fail forward and to just have days where we are really glad that no one saw what didn't work well that day, but then we can change and revise and improve from that. Last year, or in addition to our approved test scores, last year when our library, because of construction, was housed in the gym in this activity room, and we had to go outside and around to get to the library, it was very inconvenient. Students were able to check 3,400 books in that kind of situation. This year, at the end of the first semester in our new library, students had already checked out 5,200 books at the end of the first semester, and that number is quickly going to double, and will double before the end of the year. So we're very excited about that. We are very excited about our recent achievements, but we also realize that we must continue to effectively scaffold our instruction with those high expectations and relationships to meet the challenges, demands of today's learners, and they are challenging. So anyway, but we're always working together for that, and once again, attribute the culture to Mr. Nakashima and Mr. Gilbert for that.
If I project, this slide is really important. So we just saw the slide before it, which shows the demographics and the special populations at SWOPE, and then now we see the performance improving in every single category, and in some cases by more than double digits. And so I just want to take a moment to recognize you for this work, because this is passion and talent in teaching right in front of us. This is showing that you are successful in the engagement of your students. So thank you.
Thank you. You're too kind. As we do look through these slides, again, we focus on taking risks, persevering, and failing forward. We've demonstrated growth from 2019 to 2021 SBAC data. We're one of 2 middle schools to do so. We rely on an engaged community and forward-thinking staff who support our students. Mr. Gilbert mentioned we can't take full credit on this because we have wonderful elementary schools that feed us and provide us students that are ready to transition to middle school with the skills ready to attack the content areas. And we're learning from our elementary schools as far as the amount of time that they spend on English and on math. So again, a shout out to our incoming elementary schools. In ELA, we did see the greatest score or growth in SBAC scores across the district with 11% increase. And our teachers came to leadership meeting this year, and they explained, we want to change things up. And I was like, you want to change things up? And you guys saw a great increase. And they said, well, Lexia was good, and we believe that helped. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that we provide enrichment opportunities for those students that are already meeting standard and proficient. So we want to take the next step and make sure that those students have access to enrichment. So absolutely, we need to continue to take risks. We must continue to improve. In math, our teachers are working to complete training in February to build thinking classrooms based on the research of Peter Liljedahl. And then in science, we did not really realize this until a few months into the school year, but not only did our students see a growth of 16% on their exams, but they were ranked 21st of 852 schools as reported by the Governor's Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology. And I think Tracy Howard is her name, is the one that brought that up when Mr. Gilbert was talking to her about applying to the Governor's OSIT for governor's designation as a STEM school. So not to belabor the task or belabor what we've been focusing on, but our science teachers then came back to us and said, listen, we're not going to stop here. We want to take the next step, and we want to be able to flip our classrooms using the information that we gained over COVID, and we want to work towards standards-based grading. And I said, well, that's going to be a bit of a challenge. Communication needs to be huge with regards to the way grading is taking place, and they accepted the challenge. As a school, we are working to improve our understanding of our EL population with lessons about where our students are coming from. We spent some of our PD this last PD day learning a little bit about our students from Micronesia. Our students lead the district in the use of paper tutoring because our teachers incorporate it into their daily lessons, and we communicate it to their parents, and our parents take advantage of it. We had a student using paper to review math at 8:30 on a Friday night, and I asked his mom, are you kidding me? And she said, you know what? He wanted to open up the rest of his weekend because he had other sports to participate in. So I'm going to leave the data for now and introduce you to Tara Sala. Tara Sala teaches at Swope Middle School, is a parent of an 8th grade student, and serves as our PFA president, where she works to support our teachers through classroom purchases, rallying our parent volunteers for events, and setting up teacher appreciation events throughout the school year.
Welcome, Ms. Sala.
So Mr. Gilbert was not kidding when he says that Swope is a unique community school. When you drive through the back of our school, we share it with the Little League field, and you can see lots of community banners that line the fence. And because it's such a small community school, we have so many community members that will come and visit a lot of our events. And one of the things that's pretty cool is that there's lots of generations of Swope that go to Swope. You know, it's like, oh, my mom and dad went there, my grandparents went there. So I think the sense of community has been a tradition at Swope, and it's obviously, continuing to this day. But I just wanted to highlight some of the things that we do as a community that the PFA and the school and the community all kind of work together, which is pretty cool. The highlight, I think, for me is the Veterans Day Assembly. This assembly was established more than 20 years ago. We invite veterans from all over the community to come to a breakfast, which we host, that we're honoring them, essentially. Reno High ROTC comes and presents, so we kind of draw in the high school, as well as our own students who read their Patriots Pen essays. And every advisory, every kid contributes by making posters that are through the gym. And I would invite any of you that ever get to go to this assembly. It's pretty special. Each student can also turn in photos of their own family members that were veterans, and it's displayed as a slideshow. Most importantly, we select a picture of a veteran to be added to our Hall of Heroes, and oftentimes this person is an alumni of Swope or even a teacher of Swope. So that's a really special community event that we do. We also do our Panther Prowl, with which President Smith had talked about earlier. This has been going on in our school for about 10 years. It's a color run fundraiser that we collaborate with the PFA. Each student gets a shirt, a white shirt that they wear during the color run, and of course volunteers throw dye on them. The kids love it. We have a DJ. It's really fun for them, and it's a team school building event, and all the sponsors put their names on the back of the shirt. And then what's really special about that is that those shirts go back to the school, and the science department tie-dyes those shirts from their different team colors. And then on Wednesdays, kids can wear those shirts, which is pretty neat to see. So it's actually, for me, it's a weekly reminder of the community support at our school. We also held a gingerbread fundraiser. If any of you have traveled through the airport in the last couple months, you've probably seen them displayed out front of the area where you walk up the, after security. And the culinary arts students are the ones that compete to make art out of gingerbread and candy. The top 6 are displayed at the airport, and travelers get to vote on which one they think is, the best. And they put their little money in the, the little box, and all that money is tallied up. And then at the end, the student gets to win, gets honored, and then we this year donated the money to the Center for Adaptive Writing. So those are the highlights, the community highlights. But like Mr. Nakashima, everybody, the voice from our school is that we all work together. It's not just teachers; it's teachers and parents and students, and we're all in it together. So.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sala.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to now introduce our Dean of Students, Beth Martin, who's going to speak a little bit to some of the challenges that we have and how we're working to address that.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Beth Martin. I'm the Dean of Students at Swope Middle School. Some things that I want to touch on today are on the slide up there: improving attendance, increasing student voice and choice, and support mental health. So some things that we have in place for improving attendance: we're fortunate to have support from the Intervention and Truancy Department to help Swope community increase student attendance. We have an employee that works with a focus group of students to help re-engage them and help students set goals to improve their attendance. We also have a truancy officer that builds relationships with students and supports them through the day and helps get them to school. Increasing student voice and choice. As previously mentioned by Eva Lambert, we have a very strong student leadership program at Swope. But we also have other things in place, like during our advisory classes that we have every day, we have weekly class circles that allow students to connect with their teachers and other students in the class that are on their same team. And then we also have the second step curriculum that is for like social emotional learning that helps support our Tier 1 instruction for meeting the mental health needs of our students. When we're dealing with difficult situations, we try to guide students with questions when they are in difficult situations with their peers or a teacher, asking questions like, what happened? How did that make you feel? How did the other person feel? And how can we move forward? This helps everyone to hear both sides of the story and to make sure that each person has had time to make sure their voice is heard. We have also started to reshape the way decisions are made in our school by building shared agreements in classrooms rather than walking into classroom with rules already set for you. We work to allow students to have choices to meet their individual needs and show students that their voice matters in the classroom. We all play an important role in building a school community, and we want to make sure that students are included in the decision-making process. And lastly, our mental health support. We work through Washoe County School District with the CDC and the American Institute for Research to assist us with mental health supports that we have in place at school. We have an ongoing discussion about what is working well, what needs improvement to ensure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students. We work to make sure that each student has a connection with at least one staff member to ensure that all students have at least one person on campus to connect with and reach out to. We also work through our MTSS system to ensure students are getting the level of support that they need while they're in school. We make connections with our students and learn about the tools they need to be successful, and this has helped us create a safe, trusted space within our school, which has allowed us to build a strong sense of community. Ensuring all students feel seen and heard helps to build a culture of community that leads to lifelong learning, both socially and academically, and those are just a few of the things that we have at Swope that make us so unique.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Well, that's the end of our presentation. The final slide is our staff. We took that picture a few weeks ago, and all the credit does go to our community, our families, our students, but our staff is second to none. They challenge us at every turn to make sure that we're working to provide them and our students the best possible learning environment. So I'd like to thank the Board of Trustees, Superintendent Dr. Enfield, Deputy Superintendent Keough for providing us this opportunity to share a little bit about what we do at SWOPE.
Thank you so much, Principal Nakashima. Am I allowed to tell everybody your nickname?
Absolutely.
So everyone calls him Knock. He's the Knock. Yep. And I just want to say thank you. You're really demonstrating what success looks like by engaging your students and then translating that into academic success. And also want to recognize that I believe that there's some other SWOPE teachers out in the audience as well too. So I just want you to know that you're seen and appreciated. All right, I see some lights on, led by Trustee Church.
I beat him to the punch, huh? Thank you all very much, and thank you for all the SWOPE family that waited through that first 2 hours, and I didn't see many of you fall asleep, so it's got to be brutal. Seriously, on the kids that are chronically absent, it's such an important issue. Do you find it's the parents or the students or a combination? Who is it that needs the prodding? And I just applaud what you're doing, but maybe you could address that. I was always curious.
If I'm going to be honest, the biggest obstacle this year for us was the capital projects calendar, because we have so many students whose families have children in high school or elementary school. So while we were attending school during the fall break, many of those families took that time to take their siblings on vacation or just to be at home, to take a bit of a break. So our attendance actually dropped down to 75% during that week.
I don't understand what that capital projects means. I'm thinking building.
Okay, so in order to have an extended summer break to allow for construction to take place, they had to extend the calendar by 2 weeks, and then we ended up losing some time during the fall break and spring break. And in addition, we have learned, for so many years, last few years, we've been telling our families, stay home. Students, make sure that you stay home when you're sick or you're coughing, and we've got to continue with that message because we want to make sure that students aren't sick at school. But it became an easier way for students to kind of say, I need to take a break. So we need to build up that perseverance of attending school on a regular basis for so many of our students that were out of school during digital learning, distance learning.
Thank you. I know Superintendent Enfield. I'd like to welcome your thoughts here.
Thank you very much, President Smith, and thank you, Principal Nakashima, and congratulations again to Eva. I'm glad that Principal Nakashima brought up the construction calendar as a challenge because I couldn't agree more. Just so the trustees know, that was actually sort of part of a strategy that if we couldn't get our capital projects done in time, given the shortened length of our summer, that we would delay school start. I made it very clear with COO Adam Searcy that we can no longer use that as a strategy. Obviously, sometimes there are unforeseen circumstances that prevent a project from being completed on time, but we simply cannot have schools delayed, school start delayed, and impact student attendance because of the reasons that Principal Nakashima just mentioned. So we need all of our schools to start on the first day of school so that our students don't lose instructional time throughout the year because their families had planned time over vacations that we had to cancel because of the late start.
Thank you very much, Superintendent. All right. I don't see any other lights. This was an outstanding presentation. I'm repping our colors, and just thank you so much for sharing this success with us. We're very proud of you. All right, so that goes ahead and that closes item 4.02. I'd like to signal to my colleagues, we're going to go ahead and move forward now with item 4.01. The adoption of the Washoe County School District Board Resolution 23-001, a resolution recognizing February 2023 as Career and Technical Education Month. This is an item for possible action after this, but before we get to Section 5, we're going to take a brief 5 minutes, okay? And then we're going to get right back to it as we close up. So now I'd like to welcome Josh Hartzog. He's our Director of the Signature Academies and CTE. Welcome, Mr. Hartzog.
Josh Hartzog here for the record. Thank you, President Smith, Deputy Superintendent Keogh, members of the board, Dr. Enfield, thank you for having us tonight. I'm just going to provide you with just a few remarks, if I may. We want to thank you for allowing us this time to celebrate CTE, and I want to provide you with just a few high-level remarks just for your benefit and the benefit of the public, just kind of recapping what CTE in our school district is all about. So, as a reminder, across every single one of our comprehensive high schools, we offer over 30 CTE programs. Every single one of our high schools has at least 4 to 5 CTE programs, ranging from computer science and cybersecurity to advanced manufacturing and welding technology, to sports medicine and biomedical, to culinary arts and human and social services. Every single one of our CTE programs is aimed at preparing students for the world of work and career, and especially preparing them for those next steps after high school, whether they elect to go into a 4-year college and university, or a community college, or a technical training program, or some kind of a certification program, apprenticeship, or direct entry into the workforce. Our CTE programs aim to prepare those students to make sure that they're prepared by focusing essentially on developing their technical skills, their professional skills, and also with an emphasis on project-based learning as well as work-based learning. Another way that they aim to prepare our students is also with an emphasis on industry-recognized credentials, which is something we're really looking to upscale in our department. Examples of opportunities for students to gain those certifications would be OSHA 10 basic safety certifications, Serve Safe Food Handler certifications, and basic life support. In our school district, we have about 100 CTE teachers, and we also have CTE administrators and CTE counselors identified at every single one of our high schools. In order to celebrate and promote CTE Month, some of the things that we've been doing, aside from promoting all of the various resources and news items coming forth out of the Nevada Department of Education, is we've been co-sponsoring proclamations, such as this one here in front of this esteemed group. We've also been co-sponsoring proclamations with the City of Sparks, as well as the City of Reno. And then on February 26th, we're looking to host a CTE teacher staff mixer, where we're inviting our teachers to join us for an evening at AACT High School. We'll be feeding them pizza, and then we'll be going across the street to TMCC to check out their CTE open house night event. So it's kind of a win-win for all of us. Dr. Keogh once made the remark recently about us being mindful about what we are doing to innovate in education. And that's something that we take very seriously in CTE because we're always trying to innovate. So I wanted to share with you just 3 things that our teachers are doing to innovate in the space of CTE that we're extremely proud of. And by nature, I'm leaving out a ton of other people who are also doing innovative things, but just a few things that I want to share with you tonight. Number one, a number of our CTE programs are engaged in what is called the MIT Solve Ed Challenge, and that is a youth social innovation challenge being administered by MIT, like the MIT, wherein MIT challenges student teams around the world to formulate solutions to some of the world's most pressing problems along the lines of economics, education, health, and environmental sustainability. Around the world, we had 32 teams around the world qualify for the final phase of that competition, and 5 of those teams are from Washoe County School District. So that's something we are very, very proud of. I'm going to name check them. So that's Mr. Magula at Reed High School. That's Miss Marie Smith at AACT High School. That's Mr. Hambright at AACT High School. And it is, I knew I was going to forget one of them. Matt McKay, can you tell me who am I forgetting? Miss Dina Locke at AACT High School. I knew I was going to have to phone a friend, so thank you very much for that. Another thing that we are looking to do is we are opening a new fire science CTE program at AACT High School. That is in partnership with the Nevada Department of Education, the Truckee Meadow Fire District, as well as the Bureau of Land Management. We just received over $100,000 worth of equipment from Mineral County High School to help us start up that program, so we're thankful to them, as well as all of our other various partners. And then lastly, because I knew I would forget again, if you are a student in the sports medicine program at Hug High School, you have privileged access to a UNR medical student who will provide you with mentorship support the entire time you are in that program. It is a program that has been running for several years now under the leadership of Ms. Melissa Osterhage. It's just a fantastic program. We benefit tremendously from that public-public partnership. We just are ecstatic that UNR provides us with access to so many medical students, and they do it every single year. And this year they provided 60 medical students for our students at Hug. So we are just enthralled with that partnership. And those are just a few of the key things going on in CTE. But otherwise, we just thank you for your time and for this proclamation and this celebration tonight.
This is outstanding. Thank you so much. Before we move to the fun part of the proclamation, I do believe that we have a public comment. This is actually an item for approval.
Margaret Martini.
Ms. Martini? I think she was out there. Is Ms. Martini? Ms. Martini? All right. We'll see if she comes back in. And so now we'll go ahead and we will move forward. Is that the last public comment? Okay. If she comes in, we'll give her that chance again. And so on behalf of the board, I have asked Trustee Colleen Westlake to please read today's proclamation.
Thank you, Madam President, and I am so honored to read this. I am a huge supporter of our tech education. The sustainability of our community, I believe, absolutely depends on tech ed. So the Washoe County, with no further ado, Washoe County School District Board Resolution 23-001, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Washoe County School District recognizing February 2023 as Career and Technical Education CTE Month and the importance of career and technical education for all students. Whereas career and technical education offers students the opportunity to gain the academic, technical, and professional skills for real career readiness, and whereas students in career and technical education programs participate in authentic and meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education and increase their engagement and achievement, and whereas career and technical education provides students with career exploration opportunities earlier in their educational experience, which enables them to make informed decisions about their academic coursework and pursue established programs of student and career pathways. And whereas leaders from business and industry nationwide report increasing challenges related to addressing the skills gap and connecting qualified professional with available careers in critical CTE-related fields, including aerospace, agriculture, construction, education, healthcare, information technology, logistics, manufacturing, mining, and natural resources. And whereas career and technical education prepares students for these and other fulfilling careers by offering integrated programs of study that link secondary and post-secondary education that leads to the attainment of industry-recognized credentials. And whereas the expertise and dedication of career and technical educators inspire students to achieve higher skill levels in their career path of choice, and whereas career and technical education programs provide employers with access to a qualified and thriving workforce, ensuring that Nevada becomes a strong and competitive economy. And now, therefore, the Board of Trustees do hereby recognize the month of February 2023 as Career and Technical Education Month in the Washoe County School District, adopted this 14th day of February 2023.
Thank you so much, Trustee Westlake. And we have a formal certificate that we'll be offering to you. So last call to Ms. Martini, if she's out there. All right, seeing that. Thank you so much, Mr. Hartzog. That was incredible. Now, everyone, we're going to go ahead and
vote on.
Oh, we absolutely need to vote. That is an item. This is an item for action. Thank you, JJ. All right, the motion's here on the paper. I'll look to Mr. Woodley.
Yes. I move that the Board of Trustees adopts Washoe County School District Board Resolution 23-001, a resolution recognizing February 2023 as Career and Technical Education Month.
I second.
We got in there. I wasn't going to give that to Clerk Rodriguez, but we'll give that to Trustee Westlake. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. All right, motion carries 7-0. We're going to take a very brief break, and I mean 4:45, I'm hitting this gavel again, okay? So we'll, yep, 5 minutes. We've got this.
I gotta make coffee.
Thank you.
Whatever you say, Bob.
Quick. Oh, and my mic was not on. Thank you, everyone, for giving us that moment for break, and for my colleagues for being quick. We'll move on now to Section 5. These are our reports. And I'd like to start with item 5.01. This is our student representative report, and I welcome Ms. Ivy Batmall.
Hello, fellow Board of Trustees. Thank you, Madam President. So recently, we haven't met that recently in our Student Advisory Council since the last time I spoke to you guys, but we're planning to meet next week, and we'll be continuing discussing the idea of further establishing student voice and what it's going to look like next year. I believe they're hiring consulting somebody to make sure that we uptake student enrollment and be able to keep students, because we saw a significant decrease of students after the pandemic, and we're still suffering a lot of those results. Additionally, I want to thank all of you for seeing all of you at the State of Education address, and Superintendent Dr. Enfield for the award. I want to thank all of you again. I also want to give a big congratulations on behalf of students to the We the People teams in our little district, because a week and a half ago, we all, Reed got first place, Reno got second, and Incline placed third. And I thought it was quite amazing, even though we all traveled to Vegas, but our entire district came in the top 3. And so, yeah. So anyway, but thank you all.
Thank you so much, Ms. Batmall. All right, now we'll move on to item 5.02, our board reports. And so we will start with Trustee Mayberry. Come on down. You're the first contestant.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam President. It's been a busy time. Interestingly enough, it seems like it's forever since we've met. I think it's been about a 3-week delay, so it's a little unusual. But just quickly, I did have an opportunity to attend a lot of schools in District F. That's the fantastic district. Mendive, DePoli, Dunn Elementary, Sun Valley, Allen, Drake, Whitehead. Great experiences at all the schools. Picked up something at Allen Elementary. It's one of our title schools where the principal, Michonne Boucher, I hope I pronounced her last name correctly, uses some of her title funding for a drama class, and that enables the students, the youngsters, to really hone in on their listening skills, their reading, their writing, acting, speech, oracle skills. So it was really inspiring from that perspective. Also, Trustee Nicolette and I had an opportunity to meet with the teachers at Galena High School. I appreciate the opportunity to attend a meeting for the WEA a few weeks ago. Thank you, Mr. President, for that opportunity. Also, a few of us had an opportunity to attend a trustee appreciation event at Pine Middle School, which was really enlightening and a lot of fun. Also had a chance to attend Bailey Charter School, again, invite from Vice President Nicholas, so thank you for that. And I was really impressed with Principal Wales' leadership at Bailey Charter School. She's really turned that charter school around. That was really had a lot of red marks, not too long ago. And attended the EDON State of Education, or State of Economy event, as well as the State of the Education event. And I do want to congratulate Ivy and her team at the Incline High School for the We the People competition. And of course, Reed High School came in first, and Reno High came in second. And I didn't realize this, but both of those schools are going to Washington, D.C. in April. And I just want to give a shout out to them and encourage anyone that's listening, if they could contribute to the opportunity to have these students attend the We the People competition at the national level in Washington. It's fairly expensive. It's about $2,500 a student. So that's, in the case of Reed High School, they need to raise about $30,000. There's a link it's a PayPal link you can go to. It's fairly convoluted to say verbally, but You can contact the Nevada Center for Civic Engagement, the Nevada Center for Civic Engagement, for more details. On my social media, at Adam Mayberry, whether it be Facebook or Twitter, I've also posted the link, and we'll continue to push that link out if you want to share that as well. Gosh, it's just a handful of other things, but I appreciate the opportunity, Madam President, and happy Valentine's Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Mayberry. All right, Vice President Nicolette.
You're amazing. You didn't even look at the clock. I just have to preface that I always leave out so many things, and that's why I go over time, but I have my cards, and I'm going to try really hard. So, to extend the SWOPE celebration, on February 18th, Tammy Neeson, who's the robotics coach at SWOPE, is taking 2 VRC teams, and basically that's robotics, VEX Robotics. And VEX is not an acronym. It is the company. It is the robotics company. They're going to Las Vegas to compete in the state championship for robotics. They are the first middle school in Washoe County School District to have that distinction. And on February 25th, 4 Washoe County schools, middle schools, Swope, DePoli, Hers, and Sparks are going to Las Vegas for the state championship for the VEX IQ Robotics Championship. That is pretty cool. I had the joy of attending culinary arts lunch last Thursday at AACT. It was Thai food. The students prepare and serve all of this, so they learn not only the art back in the kitchen, but they learn the business component. They learn the front of the house component, and it was absolutely marvelous. I had such a good time, and the food was delicious. And they have little leftover things because you can't possibly eat it all, so you can eat it next day. And then I had a day filled with patriotism, all about Reno High School, and I had the honor of speaking with 2 of the government classes. I talked to them about the role of trustees, and I schooled them on Nevada Revised Statute for the system of public education, NRS 388, and we had a rousing conversation, and they were just so interesting, and they asked the best questions, and some of them I had to say, well, I'll get back to you, but in the meantime, read NRS 388. And then I went to the VA hospital, and I went to an event that's called the Last Roll Call, and it is a ceremony of remembrance to honor deceased veterans. Reno High School GROTC was there. They did the presentation of colors. The vocal motion choir sang the national anthem. The JROTC from Reno High School did the folding of the flag ceremony, and then also a young lady played taps, and it was a really incredible event. It's videotaped so that anyone who can't be there can watch it later. Bada bing, I'm done.
With a second to spare. All right, we're coming around this circle to Clerk Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. It has been busy, even though we had a little bit of a break. There's been kind of a busy time, so I've had the pleasure of visiting some schools in my district with our little bit of a break. Got the pleasure to continue to keep building and strengthening relationships with our fellow electeds, with Reno and Sparks and county. We attend the E-Dawn lunch. I know quite a few of us were there, so it's really cool to see how just the community, developers and businesses coming in and just kind of uniting behind education and see the importance of it, especially with all the big tech that's coming into our community, just really strengthening those STEM and STEAM programs. I got to attend the State of Education. That was really awesome. Superintendent Enfield, just good job. That's all I can really say. Outstanding. There was a pleasure. I got to see, again, kind of, actually, President Smith, one of the coolest things I got to see was a glider that was solar powered. Like, what? When I was a kid, I was just good just to put it together, so for them to make this thing be able to run and fly for hours on end is super cool. I mean, this is stuff that they designed and implemented, so it's really, really neat. And I got to attend the Rally for Education. That was That was, again, just seeing the community uniting behind our students and our staff. And it was just really breathtaking to see the turnout, even though it did snow. I mean, just powerful representation of our community. So a lot going on, doing a lot behind the scenes, and I'll just continue doing what I'm doing. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Clerk Rodriguez. All right, Trustee Westlake.
Thank you, Madam President. So I unfortunately was called out of state on a family emergency and had to reschedule my school visits, but I want to give a shout out to Jen Caldwell. She has rescheduled all my visits, so I will be back on track. Great job. Thank you, Jen. And I am looking forward to those visits. I did get to go and witness a huge community empowering, engaging event, the Believe in Education, Believe for Education event in downtown Reno. And I was overwhelmed by how many people attended. I was overwhelmed by people coming together and wanting to support our community, our teachers, our schools. And I can't think of a better way than pulling together to support teachers, which we absolutely have to have more of. We need to figure out how we can financially support our teachers. And it was a very successful event. I was very happy that I was able to get back into town to make that. And I appreciated Kaylin and others putting on that event. And I just want to say I am District B, which is B for best. Sorry, Adam. And I'm really looking forward to the other schools that I get to visit and get to know their administration and their teachers and get to be involved in the classroom and see those little kiddos at work. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Westlake. If it helps, I'm pretty sure that Trustee District B is entirely within District F, so they get to be fantastic and best. I'm pretty sure. And now we'll go ahead and we'll get to move on to Trustee Church.
Thank you very much. I kind of want to focus on the future. I was out of town, did attend a number of events, but focusing on the future, starting tomorrow, there's a number of JROTC events, and I hope to attend many of them. As a retired Air Force officer, it's near and dear to my heart, so I'll be starting that tomorrow. We're getting a lot of emails about school safety, so I just wanted to put on the record for those listening that tomorrow, the 15th at 3 o'clock, is the State of Nevada School Safety Committee. So you can log on to that. You can make public comments there. And then the next scheduled one for the Washoe County Safe Schools is March 6th. So you can put that on your calendar. And then February 21, myself and some others will be speaking to a community group on quality of education. So I look forward to that. So concentrating more or less on the future, I am going to make some public comments on the record, so I'll just cut this short. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Church. Trustee Woodley.
All right, thank you, Madam President. So first I'd like to acknowledge and express my appreciation for Pine Middle School and the students. They took time out of their school days to dedicate some time to their Board of Trustees, and we were celebrated, and the young students that were there also gave us a tour of the school, and they were really good hosts. They waited for us as we were walking slowly. So that was really good. They're really our future leaders of the community. I also want to also celebrate the Believe in Education rally. That was really a wonderful event. What stood out to me were two things. Number one, our president is, I'm not going to say it here publicly, but she's pretty bad, pretty awesome. And then secondly, I saw at least a dozen people that I knew personally at the event outside of being part of the school district. And it just reminded me that these teachers are part of our community. You know, they're our neighbors, they're our relatives, and we need to continue, and I know we all feel the same way, to continue to support them and let them know and show them that we're here to support them and help them to get the resources that they need. So I just want to share that. And then lastly, thank you to Ms. Caldwell. I was able to visit many of my schools in my district, Tolles, Peavine, Trainer, Billinghurst, Melton Elementary, and Glen Duncan. And all the principals stood out to me, especially Mr. Smith from Duncan. His enthusiasm and his excitement, I left out of there. I felt like I just drank a cup of coffee. He was that impressive. So I really appreciate all the interaction and the knowledge that I received from these principals. And more importantly, I really appreciate Dr. Enfield because all that information that I received from them, I shared with her what I learned, and I had some items that I wanted to discuss with her. And right in the middle of discussing my delineated items, as I was going through them, she was already responding to me with the outcomes of what I was requesting right in the middle of our meeting. So I was very impressed, and I appreciated Dr. Enfield. Thank you very much for your quick response to my requests and questions. I appreciate it. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee Woodley. All right, I have a lot of things to cover. I'm going to start off by recognizing and celebrating February as Black History Month, and that Black history is American history. I'd also like to recognize that last week was National School Counseling Week, so thank you to Catherine Loudon and her team out there. We appreciate you. There was a lot of great things happening over the past 3 weeks. I'll start off with the Milk and Educator Awards. We were there to celebrate Jason Murray of Florence Drake and Liz Barnum from Catherine Dunn, 2 elementary schools in Sparks. They each won $25,000 and were recognized as some of the top educators in America. We also have a new feature. I'm going to get on the Jen Caldwell Love Train. Next stop, Find Your Trustee, which is a new feature on WCSD.com, so WashoeCountySchools.net. It's a Find Your Trustee. It's the #1 question we get. Who's my trustee or who are my trustees? So she just debuted a new feature where people can put their addresses in. They can also look on a map and they can see who represents them, although we all serve you. I attended the EDON State of the Economy event in Northern Nevada. That was outstanding. With all my colleagues, participated in a full day of balanced governance board member training with Dr. Thomas Alsbury. He's the innovator of balanced governance, and that was a great day with us all together. Also participated in the SWOPE expansion ribbon cutting. That was a real special day as we formally celebrated that expansion and the gift of our WC1 funding. Also spoke at the Washoe County School District State of Education, which was an amazing event, very, very well attended, and Superintendent Enfield did a fantastic job. Vice President Nicolette and Trustees Woodley and Mayberry were hosted at Pine Middle School with me for the Trustee Appreciation Event by their leadership program. That is my red, white, and blue lei right here. Those students were incredible and very impressive. I also visited the Mount Rose K-8 Academy of Languages, participated in a full-day workshop for the Nevada Association of School Board Presidents with different school board presidents across the state, went to a Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Governing Board meeting, spoke at the Believe in Education rally, and then I'm going to close with a story. I was in a doctor's appointment. I was with my oncologist last Wednesday, and my oncologist pops her head in, and she says, I have a student with me. Do you mind if I bring in this student who's shadowing me today? I was fully expecting to see a UNR student. It was an AACT student. So she came in. She participated in the appointment. It was incredible to see her there, and it was such a full circle moment for me to see our students in these offices providing care to our community. And so she knows this, but Ananya, I look forward to personally handing you your diploma in June. So thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll go ahead and close item 5.02 and move on to 5.03, our superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Smith. And first of all, again, I'm so sorry I'm not there with you. Happy Valentine's Day. I am presenting at the American Association of School Administrators conference. That is the Superintendent's Association. And so that is why I'm not there. I do want to, again, thank all in the community who came out for the State of Education address, the first of what I hope will be many that I have the honor of giving as your superintendent, and also to the Believe in Education rally. I want to thank Kaylin Evans and Summer for really doing all the heavy lifting and organizing. And I want to thank everybody who came out to show their support for our staff and our students. As I think Mark Mathers made clear, we have an unprecedented opportunity during this legislative session to help Nevada catch up. And I think it's important to emphasize to catch up. What we get this year will be the first of what I believe is a down payment on what we ultimately need to get toward to make sure that we are competitively funded with other states across the country. But I'm confident that we will, and I'm grateful for everybody's advocacy. And finally, I just want to acknowledge that we have had some incidents recently in schools, some fights, and in some cases, students and staff have had some injuries. And I know that this is of grave concern to Kaylin Evans, to myself, to everyone in the community. And we are talking about solutions. I am actually talking with my executive leadership team on how we can provide clear guidance to principals on what our expectations are for follow through in these incidents in terms of consequences for students, support for students and staff, and making sure that we're following those procedures consistently across all of our schools. And so just know that I am committed to doing everything that I can to address these incidents when they happen, but more importantly, to continue to put the resources in place to prevent them from happening in the first place. And that's all for tonight.
Thank you very much. That'll also be a future item for this board too. All right, closing out section 5 and moving on to section 6, our public comment, item 6.01. JJ, can we welcome our speakers?
Bruce Foster.
Hi, Mr. Foster, welcome.
Hello, happy Thanksgiving. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that's somebody else. Happy Valentine's Day. And thank you for allowing us to speak. I'm really stiff right now. I'm trying to get limbered up here. And for the record, Bruce Foster, I'm AKA Papa to all my grandkids. And I had 4 kids that came up through the Washoe County School District, TMCC High School, McQueen, and Academy of Arts, which was called back in the day, and McQueen Special Ed, which was fantastic. And I just wish to share with you, and I think we have kind of a frog in the kettle effect going on in the last couple of decades since my kids went to school. And this is just a statement of awareness. And just want to state, in our own day of accelerating rates of crimes of violence, which we are seeing, drug abuse, pornography under the guise of sex ed, hedonistic sexual aberrations, identity confusion, wokeism, cancel culture, challenges with deteriorating family life. The American people might well recall the words of warning of the Honorable Daniel Webster. We all know who Daniel Webster is, which he spoke to the New York Historical Society February 22nd, 1852. Unborn ages of visions of glory crowd upon my soul, the realization of all which, however, is in the hands of good pleasure of Almighty God. But under his divine blessing, it will be dependent on the character and virtues of ourselves and our posterity. If we and they shall live always in the fear of God and shall respect his commandments, we may have the highest hopes of the future fortunes of our country. It will have no decline and fall. It will go on prospering. But if we and our posterity reject religious instruction and authority, the rules of eternal justice, trifle with the injunctions of morality, recklessly destroy the political constitution which holds us together, no man can tell how sudden a catastrophe we may overwhelm us. This shall bury all our glory in profound obscurity. Should that catastrophe happen, let it have no history. Let the horrible narrative never be written. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you that we're at a crossroads in a broken governmental school system. The question is, what path, as overseers of Washoe County School District, are you to take? Will agendas that include taking a deep, honest, deep dive in facing the issues of the educational system, with transparency and introducing total accountability? I believe all these points were brought forth by Governor Lombardo.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. I appreciate it.
And I have handouts from the talk from Brad Leto, which he's available, and he wishes everyone well.
Thank you so much. JJ will get those passed out to us. I appreciate it. And we'll make sure that's in the public record, too.
Sandy Tibbet.
Hi, Ms. Tibbet. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
All right, Sandy Tibbet for the record. I want to personally congratulate Colleen, or Trustee Westlake, on her hard-fought battle to win her seat on this board. It takes a certain level of courage to want to step up into the lion's den. I want to thank her for nominating Trustee Church for clerk. This never would have happened in the previous regime, so I consider the expected vote of 5-2 loss a win. I appreciate the importance of security for external threats, but I must ask, why didn't Chief Trevino address the critical internal gang threats that are currently happening in our schools in his presentation? Only when the obvious was stated by Mr. Parks and echoed by Trustee Westlake did Chief Trevino address this critical issue. I do appreciate that the board will be addressing the internal threats in the future. I also want to thank Trustee Rodriguez for his work to secure a K-9 unit as a resource for the school police. Now, I spoke with Trustee Westlake and I asked her if she had seen the email sent to Trustee Church from Superintendent Enfield. She said no. So for the sake of transparency, I will read that email into the record. The email was sent prior to Westlake being sworn in, and I obtained a copy via Twitter. You should all have a copy. Good morning, Trustee Church. All trustees blind copied. I hope that your time away for the Thanksgiving holiday was wonderful. As I have said, based on your recent actions, I do not believe you are acting in the best interest of the district. As the superintendent, I have the responsibility to protect the district as best I can. For that reason, I have instructed staff, as my contract clearly allows, to refer to any of your requests to me for response. Regarding board services, they will be responsive to common requests related to their duties, and any request out of the ordinary will be directed to me. In addition, as you know, one trustee alone cannot direct me to take action. It must be a directive from the majority of the trustees. If you wish me to conduct any investigation, please bring that request to the full board. Susan. Perhaps she can enlighten us and explain what action Trustee Church took that was not in the best interest of the district, and how she alone can restrict his access to Washoe County school staff because of something she feels or believes. Why does she feel the district needs protecting? Her words, establish strong, collaborative working relationships within the district and community, do not align with her actions, and her actions impede Trustee Church from representing his constituents. I have concerns she is going to muzzle my representative, Trustee Rodriguez, or my grandkids' representative, Trustee Westlake, if they do or say something she feels is a threat to our district. A good faith gesture would be for her to publicly apologize to Trustee Church and his constituents.
Thank you, Ms. Tibbet. I appreciate it.
And rescind her email.
Thank you.
Nichelle Hull.
Hi, Ms. Hull. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Ooh. I certainly want to echo the sentiments just communicated by Sandy Tibbet, directed to Superintendent Susan Enfield, to put together an email to censure one of the trustees who represents his constituents was so unprofessional, to throw him under the boat or bus, as they say, and copy all of his peers. Shame on you. Shame on you for directing embarrassment at Mr. Church. And we're all in this room aware, and everybody watching on the video is now aware. That man can contact whomever he wishes to in the scope of his position. I'd like to know if you are his direct supervisor. And if you're not his direct supervisor, could you please explain what gives you the jurisdiction to send an email like that to him? So this is my first school board meeting, and boy, has it been an eye-opener. It's been, I mean, by and large, a lot of self-congratulating. And I know that there's good that goes on in the district, but it was 3 hours into this meeting before Superintendent Enfield brought up the violence going on. 3 hours in, it wasn't an agenda item. I mean, I think that kind of speaks volumes. I don't know why that isn't a bigger priority to you, to everybody on this board, to every single person on this board. But I'm thankful for Trustee Colleen Westlake and Jeff Church that they brought up the wording on that paragraph regarding the mental health. I'm shocked that there was disagreement on this board, that you all are under some kind of understanding that it is not the role supremely of the parent, that the parent does not have the inside track on the mental health and the history and the background and all the details of their child, that is never to be superseded or undermined by counselor, psychiatrist, mental health worker, anyone in the school district. That you would fight that motion to reword that paragraph tells me that you don't have a lot of respect for the parent. That and the fact that your documents online group parents in the same paragraph as national terrorists. When I looked that up before I came to this meeting, it said that you do background checks on parents visiting schools to see if they are on the watch list.
Thank you so much for your public comment.
You're welcome.
Andrea Thompson.
Hi, Ms. Thompson. Welcome.
Happy Valentine's Day. My name is Andrea Thompson. I'm a mom. I have an elementary school student and one who will enter the district next year. I'm also a dual certified family practice and psychiatric nurse practitioner in the community. And I'm also an appointed member of the SHARE Committee since 2019. So I wanted to come today just to express to you what I don't think I can express in an email. And I appreciate that you have responded very thoughtfully to my email and my concern that the 4th and 5th grade proposed SHARE curriculum has sort of been tabled as you have other things going on. My concern right now is the timeline. Currently what's being taught, I think, as a healthcare professional is pretty harmful. It's clearly not working given the statistics in our state on sexually transmitted infections, sex trafficking. And if we continue to put this off, my concern is that the students next year will just not have access because we've missed the timeline again. As a parent, I wouldn't allow my child to participate in the curriculum now. I feel really confident in being able to teach that to them, but I also know there's a lot of value that they should learn that from a trusted counselor and then talk to me as a parent. And not all parents feel as confident in talking to their children about this information, which is what I see in my everyday work. So, as a psych NP, I do a lot of consults in all the major hospitals. And what I can tell you is our pediatric units, not psych units, our pediatric units are full of adolescents who are struggling. They don't have any concept of healthy relationships, consent, the social media implications, sexually transmitted infections, teen pregnancy, and we are #1 for syphilis in this country. And so it's so important that they have this information so that they can actually focus on things like improving their reading scores and their math scores. Because those things cannot be addressed if they are being sexually assaulted by a friend's older sibling and don't know that that's not a healthy relationship. Because who's going to tell them? Their abuser? No. They're not going to be able to address that. I actually loved seeing that SWOPUS have improving school scores because maybe that means some of the work that we're doing is actually working so that they can focus on this other stuff. In healthcare, we're doing one-on-one combat. I go into every patient room and I do the very best that I can. The bigger systemic issues feel too big, and that's why most of our hospitals are understaffed because many of us have said, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. And this has been something for me to give back to this community. And I really want to see this through. I understand you have a tough job. I have been in these seats. I've sat here for hours. I have listened to every public comment. I read every email. And we really have worked really hard as a committee to put something forth that we think is really helpful, evidence-based, and inclusive. And I really want to urge you to please put this on your agenda as soon as possible so that we don't miss the opportunity for these young students next year to get really good curriculum that they need. And we need to do something for them right now because it's not going to help them 2 or 3 years from now. They're going to be in the hospital seeing me. And that's really heartbreaking. So please take that into consideration. And thanks for all the work you do. And happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you so much, Ms. Thompson. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Adrian Lowry.
Hi, Mr. Lowry. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Adrian Lowry. I'm here to also request that the Board of Trustees hear the sexual health curriculum proposals by the SHARE committee. I believe that part of the reason it's been put off is because there is some backlash about it, including transgender children. And it's very hard on transgender children to not have access to healthcare information that is relevant to their lives. You know, there's been a very long history in this country and other countries of refusing members of transgender community healthcare. And right now it's really hard for these kids. There are a lot of grown people, grown men and women who are attacking them, bullying them, both on the national scale, on the local scale, in these meetings themselves. And I think you should stand up for all of the children, including transgender children. Thank you. Please have a hearing or, of the changes to the curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lowry.
Eric Mineberry.
Hi, Ms. Mineberry. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Erica Mineberry, for the record, and I am here also to advocate for comprehensive sex education for the 4th and 5th grade curriculum. I am unsure as to why reviewing this has been delayed. I have a 4th grade daughter who is trans, and she gets bullied and teased almost daily because her peers, and apparently their parents, are uneducated. Comprehensive sex education is proven to be beneficial in multiple ways, but for students like my daughter, it is life-saving. Please review and support the comprehensive sex education curriculum and give some trans students some love on this Valentine's Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mineberry.
Jeff Church.
Mr. Church, welcome.
Get some oil on the joint. Can we get over here? Thank you. Yes, I am Jeff Church, and today in public record it was put out that there was another fight at Spanish Springs High School. Well, I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that. I want to echo what the governor said, that restorative discipline is a failure. We need to look at that. Did you know that in 2020 to 2021, according to Department of Education records, at the Washoe County School District, not one student was expelled. 60,000 plus students, not one expulsion. Statewide, there were only 6 expulsions. Moving along, I previously submitted to you folks 22 agenda requests. That does include hearing the SHARE committee. That's our responsibility. All I need is a second. Also in there is we want to hear the 20-month-old K-5 ELA report that came out that mandates board approval, as well as I thank the 2 other speakers. I do believe that I'm entitled to a hearing in public, a censure, whatever you want to call it, on whatever my recent actions are, that I am denied access to staff on equal footing with the other 6 trustees. All I need is a second. Next thing I want to hand out, there's a handout material for you. JJ has it. A constituent brought to my attention a confidentiality agreement if you want to visit the schools. Now, we have laws on FERPA. You can't go disclosing anything you see. You can't take pictures of students in the classroom unless you're a trustee. but the normal people can't. But there is one sentence in there, one paragraph, that is absolutely unacceptable. Quote, I understand and agree that I will not divulge to anyone any matters discussed, including discussions by district employees or any student's behaviors, interactions, blah, blah, blah. You have a legal obligation if you see criminal activity to report it. You have a legal obligation to report child abuse. You have a legal obligation to report sexual abuse. That paragraph is unacceptable. If you see things that are not within FERPA, that are legally reportable, it is wrong for the school district to tell you you can't report it. That's just absolutely unacceptable. Whoever wrote this, it's wrong. We have an obligation to report it if something's wrong. So once again, 22 agenda requests that I submitted to you folks. All I need is a second. You got to find one or two in there, including share, including the ELA report, and including some kind of a public hearing so I can know, because no one's ever told me what my recent actions are. I do know that I filed a complaint that was found to have merit by the auditor on 2 counts. It had merit. And now I'm denied access to staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Church.
Alex Milham.
Hi, Alex. I'm sorry, it was Miller? Millam. Hi. Hi, Alex. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Alex, and I'm here to speak in support of the board bringing the comprehensive sex education curriculum for the 4th and 5th grades back on the agenda and asking for your support. Students deserve the knowledge that they need to make good decisions for their bodies, to know what healthy relationships are and if they're in one or not. And they need the information to treat their peers with respect, including their trans peers. Knowledge is power, and our students deserve to be empowered. Thank you for all you do and for your time.
Thank you, Alex.
Tyler Pacheco.
Hi, Tyler.
Hello. I am speaking in support for the new curriculum. One of the main things that causes bullying of like gay or trans individuals is not knowing what it is. So if we are able to at least let them know what being gay is at that age, just to prepare them for the future if they do feel these feelings, that they're not broken, that they're not wrong, or prepare people that in the future will just be straight or cis, that these things that other people are feeling aren't wrong. So then it will cause less bullying, less outcasting, and then over time will cause less depression, less suicidality, anything like that is prevalent in the trans community and in the gay community as well. Also, if we are able to provide any type of education in terms of sexual abuse at that age, because one of the main perpetuators of sexual abuse isn't a stranger, it's a family member, and we're relying on the family members to educate them. It's kind of like relying on the main abuser to educate them on the abuse. Now, I'm not saying that every parent is an abuser, but I'm saying that they're the main people that could be. So we should be able to bring that out of that situation, educate them outside on a neutral basis, and then it would increase the rate of reports and lower the amount of abuse taken because they would know what would be happening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Elle Hammond.
Hi, Elle. Welcome. Let's pull the mic down so we can hear you.
So, I think we should. Oh, hi, my name is Elias, and I think we should put more protection in bus stops because bus drivers can't see the back of the bus or if the kid is behind them, they could get bullied, and the bus driver wouldn't see. They're focusing on the road. And I get bullied at my bus stops sometimes because of 7th graders that pick up their kids and the kids are already at home. And there's no one there to see you walk home. And the bus drivers try their best to protect you, except you're already in the back. And if they look back there, they're going to see you, except they can't just go onto the mic and say, hey, stop bullying them. That won't stop it. And also, bus drivers don't have the opportunity to call the school and do anything bad like that. They can, except they're not going to have as much of a strong attempt than going to a normal school teacher and saying, hello, this person's bullying me. And I am also transgender, and they also make fun of people that are gay or queer or potsexual or any of those. And a lot of people in the bus stops or at school, anywhere, or even in the bus stop line when you're waiting for your bus to get onto your bus, the people that are bullies are normally going to come at you and bully you. And yeah, that's what I think. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
The board received emails from Eugene Columbus, Linda Herrick, Jeff Boma, and Mon Bertolucci.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all of our speakers. All right, we'll go ahead and close item 6.01 and move on to 6.02, our next meeting announcement. We have our next regularly scheduled Board of Trustees meeting at 2 p.m. on February 28th. And on that, we will adjourn the meeting at 5:32. Thank you.